Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto leaves Konoha because of Tsunade part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Konoha no Sato. 6 years after Naruto Uzumaki's banishment. Senju compounds. Autumn had settled into the lands of the elemental nations, and yellow and red leaves were falling down within the Senju compounds, having dried out of life. And the only one to watch as they were falling was one of the few occupants of the estate, and officially the last of Senju clan alive, Tsunade Senju, former 5th Hokage, or a former active Hokage as she was also known now, who sat outside, a sad and solemn look upon her face, a teacup at her side, and a photo in her hand, a photo of better times, one of the last happy times for her. On that photo was Tsunade with her apprentice Shizen, alongside with Hinata Hyuga and her little sister Hanabi and cousin Niji, flanked by his teammate Tenten and close to Konohamaru, Iruka, Kurenai and Anko, all cheering and congratulating the one and only number 1 unpredictable shinobi of Konoha, Naruto Uzumaki. It was Naruto's 14th birthday, and it was the first one that he had ever celebrated, all because Tsunade had thrown this party in his honor, deciding that the boy deserved to feel happy and loved on the day he was born. Slug Princess didn't expect this, but soon after she had become a Hokage, she grew closer and closer to the blonde boy, taking a role of a mother and caring for Naruto, as well as protecting him from this village. And it was her own initiative to let him have his birthday with the people that he considered his friends. All of the genins and their senseis were invited, as well as friends of Naruto, but only very few had really shown up, with even Naruto's teammates, Sakura and Sasuke, not even paying him a visit, along with Kakashi Hatake, his sensei. Jiraiya didn't come as well, having left without even a word to Naruto or Tsunade, but she knew what his deal was. But those that did show up, Hinata, Niji, Hanabi, Konohamaru, Anko, Kurenai and Shizen, they all came on their own volition, and they celebrated with Naruto his birthday, with the shy Hyuga heiress confessing her feelings for the boy, after some inspiration from Kurenai and Shizen. The look on the two's faces was priceless, and the memory of it brought a smile upon Tsunade's face. Hanabi was also very interested in the blonde, and while she was but a year younger than Hinata, clearly had good feelings for him as well. As it turned out, she adored him for protecting her sister, and herself once after she was bullied. Niji was indebted to Naruto for showing him a way to freedom away from fate, while Tenten had grown to be a close friend to Naruto following him saving Niji from his burden of hatred. Anko and Kurenai, while initially undecided about the boy, too had grown close to him in spare time, thinking of him as little brother, one that they liked in their own way, but very much cared for. Iruka and Konohamaru both saw Naruto as nothing short of their brother, along with Shizen. It was truly a great day for Naruto, who had even let down his mask of happiness and showed his tormented, broken, vulnerable self, as he cried out of happiness for this genuine act of kindness. The village has done so many wrong things to this boy, and such act of kindness. The first ever birthday that he did not fear and wasn't forced to hide, it was something that Naruto had not expected to ever receive as a gift. Tsunade and everyone comforted him, stating that things will be getting better from that point on. Sadly, they were wrong, as things had gone to worse quickly, as Naruto, having been found guilty of charges of treason, attempted murder and more by Konoha council, elders and even daimyo himself, has been banished from High no Kuni, stripped of all his honors, ranks, property and more. And all of that simply because he had done his duty and brought back a defector of the leaf, Sasuke Uchiha, unconscious, beaten and subdued, while Naruto was barely even alive. But that didn't matter to council and daimyo, who overruled Tsunade, Hyuga clan and some other minor clans that stood by Naruto. No, they wanted him gone at all costs, and merely were merciful enough as to let him live. On the same day as he was released from the hospital, Naruto had left the leaf, taking only what little Tsunade could give him to get by in the world: money, food, cloths, some scrolls. He was quickly followed by those few who had become his true real friends: Hinata, Hanabi, Niji, Tenten and Konohamaru, who had chosen to stand by their true friend instead of following the village that honors traitors instead of loyal shinobi. Iruka, Kurenai and Anko were also compelled to follow them, but had chosen to remain in Konoha, bound by loyalty to it, but now with a great sadness and dull pain in hearts. That was 6 years ago, and no word had come about them in all this time, no rumor or anything, as if they had disappeared and left a great sadness for Tsunade and those few that cherished them. And in these 6 years, many things have changed and some even returned from the shadows of the past. 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of the leaf, and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, had reemerged after 14 years since their supposed death, alongside their daughter Narumi, a twin sister of Naruto and Kushina's mini-clone, and son Menma, both twins of Naruto and true holders of Kyuubi's power. Turns out, their deaths had been carefully orchestrated and the family had went on into hiding, as Minato and Kushina, along with their children holding halves of Kyuubi's power, were prime targets for the man that had unleashed Kyuubi upon Konoha in the first place. And it was clear he wasn't going to rest until he had gotten his hands upon it. Feeling threatened and in danger, Minato made a hard choice with his wife: go into hiding with their children, to train them in controlling the power of Kyuubi. But as to elide everyone that they were gone, they left Naruto in Konoha, who held the soul of Kyuubi and very little of its true power. The few that knew of this, Sarutobi Hiruzen, elders, Council of Konoha, Jiraiya and some others, they swore never to reveal this, even to Tsunade. The day when they all had returned, Konoha celebrated like never before, while Tsunade was furious, livid, and completely mad with anger. Now she understood why Naruto was so poorly cared. Why did Council dispose of him? Holder of Kyuubi, he was merely a tool, a decoy that had played its part, and was disposed of, no longer of any use to Konoha. And his so-called parents were completely fine with that, having long made peace with sacrificing their child for their own good, even if they appeared to be saddened that Naruto was no longer in Konoha, but not even remotely remorseful. That day, Hokage's office had seen more damage done to it than in all shinobi wars and even by Kyuubi, as Tsunade practically tore that place to smithereens, before she tossed her resignation as Hokage, Sannin and shinobi to the council, effectively leaving the shinobi life behind and becoming a civilian. Jiraiya, Kushina and Minato tried to stop her, but their efforts were null, as Tsunade had set her mind and wouldn't budge, and Minato had accepted her resignation, along with the office of Hokage. And ever since that day, Tsunade watched from the sidelines as Konoha celebrated and praised the hero children of Namikaze and Uzumaki, along with forgetting of Naruto Uzumaki completely. Konoha's youth gradually became Chunins and Jonins, with Sasuke Uchiha being now married to Minato's daughter Narumi, who was instantly charmed by this brooding emo, along with Sakura Haruno in the attempt of restoring Clan Uchiha. Menma was soon also married to Ino Yamanaka and a granddaughter of Counselor Koharu. Tsunade loathed how Konoha, while at its strongest, had seemingly forsaken morality, honor, and dignity. Lands of Waves, Suna, Spring and others have turned their back at first from Konoha after hearing of Naruto, but after being pressured by Konoha and practically forced into the alliances, they were again with them, though now nothing more but puppet states. Inside Konoha, things seemed normal and prosperous, but such wasn't the case for everyone. Clan Hyuga, having been one of the few powerful supporters of Naruto Uzumaki, had found themselves on the receiving end of combined scorn of Konoha, for the support of sacrificial pawn and a demon. And the situation within the clan wasn't exactly a stable one either, as the clan had split in between the main house faction, under the leadership of Hyuga elders and their puppet clan heir, and Hayashi's faction, with practically all of branch members and some of the more progressive Hyuga main branch members included. So far, there haven't been any hostilities, but Hyuga elders, seeing how Hayashi had lost both of his daughters to demon, were now pushing him aside from his position in favor of a far more traditional Hyuga head. Unbeknownst to most was the fact of Hayashi letting both of his daughters and nephew go free on their own accord, saving them the fate of being subjugated to caged bird curse mark for the rest of their life. While Tsunade had entered a retirement as a shinobi, Shizen had continued her work in hospital as a medic, and while she was easily the best out there, because of her status as Tsunade's apprentice, she wouldn't be given either promotions or more responsibilities, shot down in favor of more loyal shinobi. Anko Midarashi was also stuck in her position of Tokubetsu Jonin in IT department, but also being under a constant probation since the return of Minato. Same reasons as with Shizen and others. Kurenai has had enough of teaching genins and decided to step down as active jonin and join the academy as an instructor, alongside Irika Yumino, proving to be one of the best and only capable teachers out there, who made sure to train and teach her students what really was needed of future shinobi, and not just blind loyalty to Konoha and reverence of Minato. Needless to say, she and Irika weren't very popular these days among shinobi either. However, recently it has become clear that Kurenai had shifted her ideas about Naruto and his friends more into line of most Konoha. Akatsuki had continued to pose a serious threat for some time, but something had happened to them, as they were now gone, with the last report of their activity coming in just 7 months ago, where it was said that leader of Akatsuki was found dead. Somebody had been hunting Akatsuki down and destroying them, one by one, but by whom? Tsunade had hoped that it was Naruto doing his part in the grand scheme of the world, but there were no clear evidences. The only thing that was clear is that Akatsuki, once one of the most threatening forces in the world, was now gone, and Konoha was at its strongest with the most beloved and powerful Hokage in their history. And Tsunade was one of the few people that still clung to all that Konoha had forgotten, and loathed how ruthless, aggressive and dishonorable this place has become. Tsunade took a sip of her tea, when she heard her apprentice come out of the house and speak to her. Lady Tsunade, there is a man outside. He asks for an audience with you and insists upon it, Shizen said to Tsunade, who simply looked at her with a bored expression and spoke up. Send him off and tell him that I am not in the mood. I don't care if he is even a Hokage or whatever. Tsunade had grown quite spiteful of visits over the years, considering that most of them were those of Kushina, her children and other people that had betrayed Naruto, and what True Leaf had stood for. I told him to go away, as you've asked me before, milady, but Shizen took out of her pocket something and showed it to Tsunade. He had this with him. Shizen handed over the item to Tsunade, which immediately made her eyes go wide and mouth agape. In Tsunade's open palm laid her former necklace, one that she had gifted to Naruto for winning the bet. She knew that there was no other like it and that the only one belonged to Naruto, who had left with it the village. And now, after over 6 years, it once again was in the hands of Tsunade. Her form shook a little, as she instantly stood up and practically stormed the compounds, without even a word to Shizen. She rushed towards the entrance into the estate, desperation and hope both present in her eyes and posture. Could it be him? Could her surrogate son have returned? Or has someone found it upon his dead body and decided to give her the news? Hundreds of suggestions and questions raced through Tsunade's mind, and she stormed right towards the entrance, where she found a young man, dressed in a pseudo-ombu black wear, with a black coat over it all. He had long black hair, straight and coming down to the beginning of his neck, with 2 bangs on other sides. Tsunade immediately froze in her place, as she recognized the man before her. Itachi Uchiha? She muttered in shock, with the said man bowing before her. You are alive? What in the world are you doing here in Konoha? A pleasure to see you as well, Lady Tsunade. Itachi said to her in a polite way. I understand that you have many questions, and I intend to answer them all, but it would be best if you had let inside. I had to drop my henge before you, and I do not wish to be seen, if I can help it. Tsunade stiffened up quite a bit, looking at the man that had slaughtered his own clan, but she knew the true reasons for it, so she let him in, and soon enough, with Shizen joining them, they sat in the guest room. Thank you for receiving me, Lady Tsunade, Shizen-san. I understand that you have questions as to what I am doing here and how did I come across First Hokage's necklace. Start with the latter, Itachi, and if I find out that you had a hand in Naruto's death, Tsunade was practically ready to destroy this man, but Itachi stopped her as he spoke up. You need not to worry, Lady Tsunade. The necklace came to me from its owner himself, Naruto, as he has given it to me, knowing that this will be an adequate argument for you to hear me out, as well as a good opportunity to give you this. Itachi pulled out of his pocket a scroll and gave it to Tsunade. As for how is your godson, Lady Tsunade, I would say that he's doing very well for himself, much better than he would in this part of the world, one would say. This is a letter from him, which I have been tasked by him to deliver to you. And before you ask, best if you read this letter. Tsunade and Shizen instantly went to the scroll, unsealing it and opening it, reading it together. For a good 10 minutes as Tsunade and Shizen had read this letter, the more and more their amazement, relief and shock grew, as the contents of that letter had revealed to them just where their beloved blonde and his company were, what they had been up to and why he has decided to reach out them now. Tsunade was in a state of shock as she discovered where her surrogate son was and who he was now, as well as just how much he has changed. It was clear to hear that he was no longer the same little blonde, but a completely different person. The letter clearly didn't contain all the information and everything that Naruto had wanted to give to Tsunade, but even from this piece of information, it was clear that he has changed, drastically, and forever. As Shizen and Tsunade had read through this letter, they looked up at Itachi, now understanding as to why he was tasked by Naruto of all people to deliver this message. Former Sannin spoke up to him. So, the man that has been reported dead for 6 years was out in the western continent all this time. Tsunade chuckled at this one. There were reports that you and your partner Kisame had met your end at the hands of Iwa's Umbu, with a dozen shinobi falling dead before you and your partner were killed. Those Umbu were present at the moment I have decided to shift my allegiances, since I needed to make it look believable. Itachi simply stated mysteriously. My time with the Akatsuki was up and I could see that any longer would only be to my detriment, and considering how Konoha has dealt with my clan and how Sasuke has turned out, I decided to follow along with your godson to the west, where he and others decided to start anew, completely. And, in my personal opinion, he has done extremely well for himself and the west, or Eriador, as it is known to them, actually. I'll say, Tsunade said in a bit of shocked voice, reeling with all the new information she and Shizen had learned. All this time, all these years, I had thought that he was somewhere out there, alive. I knew in my heart of hearts, but I didn't expect that he would end up out there in the west. The place that even Rakuto Sannin hadn't dared to venture to. They say that place is a completely different world to elemental nations, and that people there do not even hold chakra there or that monsters populate it. Many of stories are exaggerated to the point of absurdity, while many others hold only bits of truth. But a complete truth, the truth of that place is that Eriador is at least 7 times the size of this continent, and that it is populated by many, many peoples, and not just humans. That piqued the interest of Tsunade and Shizen when Itachi spoke of it. I once thought that world was still a very much unexplored place, but when I and others had gotten there, I understood just how right I truly was. Eriador is the land that is as alien and foreign from elemental nations as it was once hostile and violent. I am sure that you remember that the age of Sengoku had ended not even a century ago, and how devastating it was. Yes, it had ravaged lands and countries in its wake, hundreds of clans battling each other just to see who is stronger. Tsunade had stated. And this Eriador is no different. Was, until a year ago that is. Itachi simply said to Tsunade, who nodded to him. Only the scale was much, much greater and numbers were not in hundreds, but coming close to hundreds of thousands at times, with whole nations, kingdoms, even races battling each other, for over 700 years, after the first empire broke apart. When we first arrived there, it seemed like better would be to simply return, but Naruto, he truly is the most unpredictable man on the face of the world. Instead of fleeing, he stayed and did something that nobody had done before him. He united that land, founding what is now known as Second Numenor Empire there, with himself as its emperor and lord protector of races populating it. But with the size of that continent and possible numbers of shinobi, how in the world could Naruto do all of it? Shizen simply couldn't understand it, with Itachi smiling a little to her. Shizen-san, did I say that there were shinobi out there? Itachi said to her, with Shizen looking shocked, along with Tsunade. In that land, the only shinobi that you could find there are that had long fled there from our continent, or those that now serve Emperor as his secret, shadow defenders. There are no samurai either, not like ours. Things are completely and utterly different out in Eriador, and as for how Naruto has managed to do it all, he merely did what he always did best, rally the people, inspire and give them hope for better, show them that there is a better way of life. He casted aside such things as nationality, race, kingdom or nation, introducing a simple, yet powerful and mighty concept, a rally call for all, one Eriador, one Numenor, one nation for all, equal and just. I can assure, it had taken a great deal of persuasion, trials and tribulations, but with each battle fought and won, king, count, tyrant and more slain and surrendered, with each new ally, those words became the echoing soul of new empire, an empire, to which the emperor now wishes to welcome you, Lady Tsunade and Shizen-san, as well as a few others, those that have given him hope for the better tomorrow. Tsunade and Shizen looked shocked at Itachi, who merely smiled to them. He is well aware of what has been going on in this part of the world, and he offers you too, as well as Anko Mitarashi, Iraka Yumino, Hayashi Higa, along with his clansmen a place within the empire, as well as completing whatever conditions you may have for the living in there. As you may understand, being the sovereign of an empire as vast as his, he is capable of quite much. Tsunade and Shizen exchanged the looks, thinking about it all for a few minutes and trying to decide whether they would be willing to venture out into this unknown or not. They both knew that here in Konoha, there wasn't much that held them here, as they were now, as well as those three outcasts in this glorious Konoha, one that had sacrificed its morals and honor for power and wealth, a place that honored traitors and cowards over heroes truly. The Konoha that Tsunade and Shizen once knew is dead and out there in Eriador maybe. Tell me, what are Naruto's overall objectives with this continent and Konoha, Itachi? Tsunade asked of him, with Itachi simply answering to her. I am not completely aware of his intentions, not in details, but from what I know, he wants to establish peaceful and trading relations with several of countries out here, along with establishing a trading company for intercontinental trade. He wishes to establish a connection between West and East, but he does not want war with either of nations, nor will he permit for anything that poses a threat to Numenor Empire to exist. Itachi stated with strength, with Tsunade raising an eyebrow at this one. Such was the fate of Akatsuki. Once he had found out from me of their plans and objectives, His Imperial Majesty has tasked me and a few others to dispose of the Akatsuki before they were able to make their move. Given the fact that his spy network is most impressive, my intimate knowledge with how Akatsuki operate, their members and the level of skill and power of me and my companions, such task was relatively easy to accomplish, but crucial nonetheless. Though pain did prove to be quite the challenge, he was still defeated nonetheless. So then, the Akatsuki are really gone, huh? And the one responsible for it was my favorite little blonde. Tsunade smiled at this one. If Minato and Kushina ever find out that the sacrifice they had left here now holds so much power as to simply destroy a group of S-rank nuke means, and what of Konoha in particular? And does he know of his parents and siblings? He is well aware of them all, not that he is too pleased with this development, and how he has been sacrificed in favor of his sister and brother. By the sound of it, Itachi wasn't too thrilled with this development either. Hai no Kuni he considers to be not as worthy of attention as some others, though he does intend to open a trading office in here as well, while Konoha, in his opinion, is too small of a place to give a thought to. Considering that he rules an empire that is at least 8 times the size of Hai no Kuni, and has to deal with threats from both north and southeast to his empire, he simply finds no time to spare a thought to a place whose size is comparable to that of a small city in his empire. However, in my personal opinion, he won't be making any alliances and friends in here, considering the reports about Konoha's recent aggressive and expansionistic tendencies. Reports about Konoha's political and militaristic subjugations of Wind, Spring, Wave and Tea are quite unsettling to say the least. Even though Numenor and elemental nations are separated by more than 370 miles of ocean, Naruto, as a leader of empire, wouldn't like to suddenly find an aggressive and powerful force, bent on expansion through conquest and subjugation. He has enough concerns keeping him awake at nights as it is, I'll bet. Running a single village, a shinobi one at that, and running an empire the size of which is bigger than an entire continent, he must be drowning in paperwork alone. Tsunade let out a dry chuckle, with Itachi also chuckling to this one. Fine, let's say that I agree, along with Shizen here and others. How are you going to get us out of Konoha and into your empire unnoticed? Even more, how will we even get out of Konoha, as the matter of a fact? Do not worry about that detail, Lady Tsunade. As I have said earlier, Eriador is worlds different from elemental nations, and out there, people have found quite the ways of transportation, one of which would put Yondame's Horatian to the test and shame even. Now, what would be your answer? My clones have already reported to me that the others are at an agreement, which leaves only you out. Tsunade and Shizen looked surprised at this one, but they figured that Itachi would be one to get things done in quick and orderly fashion. Lady Tsunade, I think that we should go. There isn't much left for us to do here, and even council and civilians themselves have shown to us all that we aren't exactly welcome anymore here. Maybe, with Naruto in the west, Shizen thought that she would need to convince her teacher, but Tsunade was already there with her. Count me in, Uchiha. Tsunade agreed. Now, how are we getting out of here? Later. That evening. What do you mean vanished? Minato Namikaze, 4th Hokage and the greatest hero of Konoha, was utterly shocked and furious, as he received the report from his Anbu about the sudden disappearance of Tsunade, Shizen, Enko, Irika, Hayashi and the majority of Hyuga clan out of Konoha. It was easily the most unbelievable thing that could have happened, since there were absolutely no evidences, leads or anything for that matter to indicate that they had left the village, aside from the lack of their belongings in their respective houses. Raging members of main Hyuga branch and their colleagues. Nothing indicated that those people had left Konoha in any way. It was as if they all had just gathered in one place, according to several witnesses, and then they were gone, completely and without any trace. Minato, being an expert in Fuinjutsu and one of the only users of Hiraishin, thought that there was some form of space-time ninjutsu involved, but there were no ninjutsu that could teleport people of such quantity over any distance, and not alert the barrier corp of Konoha. And here, council is not going to like this. But still, considering that all of them have been outcasts in Konoha, for their views on state of business in Konoha and outside, maybe it was even for the best. Less of those that opposed Minato's views on Konoha and its expansion, and he didn't even have to weed out the possible political opposition. Clan Hyuga had suffered a serious blow, being now only at its 12th of power, but this was also to Minato's favor, as it would seriously limit otherwise powerful and influential clan, and even allow him to gain a much greater control over it. Although, he still couldn't think of what could have been the reason for those particular people to disappear, aside from the fact that they were outcasts, and all of them were still openly talking and remembering Naruto, the son that he and Kushina had sacrificed for the benefit of Konoha and their family. Maybe it was the latter, but perhaps he was overthinking it too much, as it was clear the boy was dead and other defectors with him as well gone. He and Kushina were saddened at the fact that they couldn't ever see him ever again, but from what they had learned from council and clan heads, he wasn't much of a sight to behold, nor was he even worthy of his name, or name of his mother. Overall, his loss wasn't as significant as one would think, and it was, essentially, his destiny, designed by him and Kushina, to be sacrificed in favor of his siblings with power of Kyuubi. So, in that regard, Naruto has done his duty and was no longer needed, and with his disappearance, this meant an unneeded loose end cut. Minato drew his breath, as he thought about this whole situation again, and spoke up to his Anbu. Triple the security around Konoha, alert all of our outposts and checkpoints, as well as alert all our teams out there. Send out search teams outside and check their houses again. Find anything on where they could have gone out. Anbu Black Ops nodded and disappeared instantly, with Minato letting out a sigh. Well, color me impressed. Jiraiya snorted, drawing the attention of Minato. Every single person that just wouldn't let go of Naruto and be objecting to the policy of Konoha is gone. You sure you hadn't a hand in it, kid? You know as well as I do that I had nothing to do with this, sensei. But still, to be able to get out of our village like that, simply vanish in such large quantity from Senju compounds, is something that not even Hiraishin wouldn't be able to accomplish. Have you found anything there? Minato asked of him, with Jiraiya shaking his head at this one. Nope, not a single clue or anything. All I know is that before their disappearance, Hayashi received a visitor, but nobody knows who that was and there was no luck in finding him either. All that we have is that everyone who wasn't on board with you and the rest of Konoha are gone. Poof, and nothing. Jiraiya simply stated to Minato, and as for Akatsuki, then I can only confirm what everyone is thinking. They are gone, dead and killed by someone who had hunted them down. Some of my sources pointed out that some men and women were searching for them, but nothing too surprising here, considering that pretty much everyone hated them for one reason or another. If anything, it would seem that threats to both Narumi and Menma are gone, as well as other Jinchuriki. And it doesn't seem to be the work of any other hidden villages. I'll keep an eye out if something comes up, but other than that, I would say that Konoha is in the best position ever. Yes, it seems that way. Minato agreed. Now all that we need to do is keep the hold over other lands and get rid of Orochimaru for good. By the way, how are things with Kiri? Any progress? Not much has changed there, kid, but it does seem like rebels are going to win for sure. Jiraiya stated to Minato, who nodded to him. Perhaps, now's the best time to expand the will of fire upon the Mizu no Kuni? Maybe he thought it would be best to first consult Daimyo, and inform him of this window of opportunity, plus give him time to select a proper candidate for the position of Mizu Daimyo. Minato chuckled a little, standing up and looking out at Konoha from the window. Looks like the prophecy is sure to come true soon enough. Eternal peace under Konoha's rule, with Menma's and Narumi's children to live in there and rule it. Yeah, kid, it sure is going to come sooner than later. Well, I'll be off now. Time to see what nice material I can get in Hot Springs. And with that, Jiraiya had disappeared from the office, leaving Minato to his own thoughts. First, second and third Hokage, I hope that you are watching over me and Konoha right now. Soon enough, the will of fire will become dominant in the elemental nations, and once all that had defied it have embraced it, nothing will stop the shinobi from truly taking over the control and command of a unified land. A single nation under a single kage, without any daimyo to pull the strings of true peace. Minato smiled to this thought, the thought of a world where shinobi were truly in power, with will of fire connecting them all together. It will be a glorious sight to behold once it came to fruition. 4 years later. The Sea Rider southern shores of Second Numenor Empire. 4 years have passed since the day when all of Minato's opposition has vanished from Konoha and elemental nations, and these 4 years have seen the rise and power of Konoha, but also a sudden unification of old enemies of theirs. With Hai no Kuni's intervention in Kiri's civil war and into internal affairs of Mizu, a new, pro-Konoha government, Mizukage and daimyo were placed there, ensuring a new ally and subjugation of otherwise unstable region. Another step towards the grand peace has been made, but after that, the other nations have recognized the threat that Hai no Kuni and Konoha now posed. This has prompted Iwa and Kumo to unite again in the alliance, with many of the smaller nations coming together with them, with Stone, Rain and several others openly integrating themselves into the bigger nations for protection. With wind and water being effectively puppets of fire, daimyos of earth and lightning understood the threat and allied themselves, along with Oto no Kuni and Otogekure, still led by Orochimaru, who was now a lesser evil and threat, when opposed to aggressive and powerful Konoha and its fourth Hokage. It was clear to everyone that a new great shinobi war wasn't far away, and it could risk becoming the biggest one yet, with tens of thousands dying this time, possibly even hundreds of thousands. And everyone was preparing for it, but nobody was ready to throw the first punch, and as if the stroke of fate itself, a great famine had hit the elemental nations, sweeping through the countries and leaving entire nations without food and starving, lasting for 2 years. Especially badly were hit the countries of Northern Alliance, the union between Odo, Kumo and Iwa, with famine, plagues and illnesses taking the lives of over 1/6 of populations in each country, including invaluable shinobi forces. This would have been a perfect time for Konoha to strike, but they also had succumbed to its effects, with great casualties among populace and shinobi. Suna was especially badly hit, with 1/4 of its population dying and Land of Wind practically becoming desolate and filled with corpses of dead. Kiri and Mizu were hit lesser than most, but because of Konoha confiscating the resources and food from there, casualties were still extremely high from food shortages and lack of resources. Konoha maybe not declared war, but it took many resources from nations that needed it to sustain itself, leading it to suffer less than others combined. This had only intensified the hatred for Konoha in all of elemental nations, as Hai no Kuni now was starting to become a major global threat to peace. Somewhere in the middle of a great famine, out of nowhere, across all of elemental nations, a new trading company emerged, which had quickly monopolized trading business through the sea and across nations. The Phoenix Trading Company, a company with hundreds of ships loaded with goods, resources and more from none other than the elusive, mysterious and even mythical Western continent, and an empire that now dominated there, the Second Numenor Empire. The revelation that out in the west lies a nation so powerful and mighty that it has called itself an empire, has shook the elemental nations to the core. A completely new, unknown and yet extremely powerful player in global scheme of things, it has completely changed the balance of the world. From what traders and officials of Phoenix Company told daimyos and kage, the empire had no interest in invading and attacking their lands, instead opting to opening trading, economic and diplomatic relations, with nations welcome to send their envoys and diplomats to establish official relations with empire. Daimyo of Fire had initially shrugged it all off, thinking of it being not worthy of his attentions. However, the situation changed when reports came in that lands of Iron, Sound, Lightning had sent their official diplomats, envoys and even managed to establish embassies in the capital of the empire, Numenor City. The news of this, along with apparent rumors that emperor has been sending humanitarian help to the nations of Northern Alliance, helping them recover from the Great Famine, have infuriated Daimyo, and he demanded an immediate envoy and diplomatic mission to Empire from Konoha, with demands for opening a direct trade, a consulate and abolishment of trade with all of Northern Alliance, as well as the demand for humanitarian help from Empire as well. For this mission, Daimyo decided to send Minato himself, along with Konoha's elders and some of his officials. Minato, Konoha's elders, his wife, son and daughter with their spouses, along with Sasuke, Sakura, Jiraiya, Asuma Sarutobi and Kurenai Yuhi, Kakashi Hatake, Might Guy, Shikamaru Naura, Kiba Inuzuka, Rock Lee, and Daimyo's officials, accompanied by a squad of Umbu Black Ops, were now on board of Sea Rider, heading towards the Numenor City and were due to arrive within a week, having departed almost 2 weeks ago already. As Minato and Kushina stood on the deck, they looked out towards the shore, noticing how amidst the green fields, forests and more, was a completely black, desolate, and empty place. And out there in the middle, ruins of what seemed to be a small city or big fortress stood still black and smoking. A distinct smell of fire, ashes, blood and death was sensed even here, unnerving the couple, when the captain came up and spoke to them. "Ah, you sense it too." Captain, a tall and strong black-haired man with a short beard, came close to the edge and looked out to the destroyed keep. 5 years have passed, and that place still reeks of death and fire. Not even years after that slaughter did the smell and remains of House Latrua disappear in the wind. Fucking traitorous bastards. Every single one of them. Hope they rot in hell after what they did. You sound like you've been there before, Captain. Minato noted out, with Captain nodding his head. Care to tell us what had happened out there? Yes, I've been there, commanding the 17th Marksman Brigade, under command of the Emperor. My brigade has fought at his side throughout all of battles and the entirety of the Great War, from first battle at Pinewood Ridge to the Battle of Siren's Keep, which you see out there, and what remains of it. Captain said to them, surprising the Hokage and his wife, along with other passengers that were close to them on the deck. Once one of the oldest and most powerful citadels in all of Numenor, now a reminder of Emperor's justice and vengeance, as well as the example to all those that dare break their vows and laws of men. You have fought alongside Emperor? What is this guy like, and is he a shinobi? And just what did he do that place and what happened there? Without much of tact, Menma instantly asked of Captain. From the looks of it, he had pulled out some crazy jutsu upon the people out there to make it look like hell without flames. Don't know jack about those jutsu of yours and don't care for 'em. And as for those shinobi business, the Emperor is not an assassin or spy. What he is, however, is a man of greatness, forged in fire and blood of great war, driven and determined with a purpose and idea of uniting the land you see out there into one single entity. Captain said with respect and pride. I remember the day when I first laid eyes upon him, an apprentice to then Lord and ruler of Numenor, Uther Pendragon. None of us thought much of him, but soon enough, that blond lad had led us in battle against Mauritian Kingdom to the east, and it was probably then when all of us saw not just another one noble knight and paladin, but someone who could unite this land into one. One Eriador, one Numenor, one nation for all, equal and just. Those were his words, and they resonated with all our hearts and souls, and it wasn't long till he began to prove that he was indeed making it a reality. Once an apprentice turned into a paladin, and soon into a lord, and then a unifier and selected emperor, first one since the fall of Ravenheart dynasty 700 years ago. Adopted into Pendragon as a son of Uther, he made due on his promise to bring peace and prosperity to this land, to unite its fighting kingdoms, races and defeat the threats that had terrorized the populace. And that he did, through the might of sword, strength of the light, magic, inspiration, diplomacy and personal example. In 5 years he has done all of that, and people of Numenor proclaimed him their emperor, chosen by all races as their lord protector and sovereign, Captain said with greatest pride and smile. You ask of me what that man is, lad? The emperor is the man that has made a hopeless dream into the reality, shattering old hatreds and grudges in favor of unity, common good and prosperity of people. In his eyes, no race is greater or lesser before others, and he made into reality. He is the man for whom I would gladly lay down my life and be proud to stand by his side again. The words of Captain were listened carefully, and with intentions by others. Nobody in the High no Kuni had known much about the emperor of this land, and what kind of a person he really was. However, from the way this man spoke, with respect, honor and pride present in his voice, it was clear as day that the emperor was someone who held utmost loyalty of his people. A powerful warrior and paladin, whatever that meant, as well as a military and political genius, to have been able to unite this enormous land under his rule if Konoha were to secure not just a trading treaty, but an alliance with him, get his armies and fleets for themselves, then elemental nations would fall without any chance before Minato and Konoha. How old would this emperor actually be, if you do not mind telling us? Kohara asked of him. From what we heard, he is pretty young, younger than our daimyo and Hokage. And what had actually happened there? The emperor is around 25 years old by now, and even though he is young, he is a bloody great man. Captain looked towards the ruins of a keep again, and as for Siren's Keep, House of Latrua was one of the few remaining independent houses to join the empire, and they had sent a message that they are willing to accept an envoy and Emperor's official diplomat to sign the Treaty of Unity. When the envoy had arrived, with them was one of Emperor's most trusted persons, his first consort and wife, a kind, gentle and good woman. A dream for any man. Latrua had pulled out a feast for the envoy and consort, after which they had slaughtered them, and in act of spite, arrogance and pride, they sent the corpses back to Emperor, with a reply on his offer. Emperor, at the time, was in Northwest, dealing with Ironborn raiders, but when he received the bodies and learned what Latrua had done to his diplomats and his consort, never anyone had ever seen him so furious and mad, a fury that eclipsed even the anger of dragons. Captain recalled the moment. Within a fortnight he marched to the Siren's Keep, bringing with him the full might and armies of the Empire, over 300,000 men, women, warriors, paladins, knights, mages, even dragons. All of that might against some 30,000 peasant soldiers and 4,000 knights. The Emperor offered the peasants to lay down their arms and knights to surrender, which they all did, but to Latrua he offered no surrender or capitulation. They had violated sacred laws of hospitality, honor, and had killed his wife and consort. He gave us all a simple, yet clear order: destroy them. And that we did. Wait, you mean that your Emperor commands literal dragons? Like those flying giant green snakes and everything? You've got to be shitting us here, old man, Kiba exclaimed, with Captain and his crew glaring at him. I mean, come on, dragons are just fantasy stories, nothing more. Plus, magic, whatever knights and paladins, you obviously just making it up. After all, shinobi and samurai win battles and wars, not some fantastic beasts and imaginary heroes. Lad, let me ask you a question here. Am I from your continent, and are in there? Captain asked of him, with Kiba shaking his head. Right, we ain't there, and here, in Eriador, things a hell of a different from your east. You folks may have your shinobi and samurai all over the place, with that chakra and whatever, but our people here? We also got whatever that chakra, but we also have magic, power of light, elemental powers, power of nature and primordial, or arcane power. Aside from humans, we've got here also high and night elves, orcs and dwarves, among other minor races, and we most certainly have dragons, beings of pure magical power and might that could destroy countries in their wake. And our empress, may light protect her, is a bloody dragon, the black dragon queen of black flight, Semiramis. And before you ask, dragons can turn into beings of other races to blend in, and she, along with her black flight, is one of the reasons why our emperor has united this land, as she has joined him in his quest, as this was her own desire to see the land united too. These powers, all these races and even dragons, we knew that things could be different here, but to think that are more races here, and there is different kinds of chakra. Minato's mind raced at what he had just heard. If the emperor were to allow Kushina and Jiraiya access, we could easily obtain the needed information and knowledge to use this magic as he speaks of, and it does seem like that people here even somehow mastered senjutsu, if that power of nature is anything to go by. And in return to this, maybe we could offer him our knowledge of chakra and perhaps a political marriage, since Captain has mentioned that emperor has multiple consorts. A bloodline member, perhaps someone from Nara clan or Yamanaka clan, to sway emperor in our favor for good and promote Konoha's interests. Yes, that definitely would work. So, these lands hold a great variety of sources of power, and even dragons. All of this must belong to Konoha and put to use for it. Danzo already thought about his own plans. Once we reach the capital, using Kodo Amatsukami on the emperor will be child's play and Konoha's positions shall be unrivaled. The resources of this land will also work for the betterment of Konoha, just like all those other villages and nations now do, and with the might of Numenor Empire and its vast resources, nothing will stop Konoha from rising above the petty and weak daimyos and claiming its rightful place as world's true empire. If he had an entire army of such powerful beings, he should have just let them do all the work. Had it been me, an Uchiha, I would have had united this land in no time, with such an army, worthy of true elite, Sasuke arrogantly stated, with Captain looking incredulous at him. If those dragons are as powerful as you say, then by using them, this emperor of yours should have long burned away those that dared opposing him. I certainly would have. You an Uchiha? Captain asked of him, with Sasuke arrogantly nodding to him. There are Uchihas in the east as well? I thought they had long killed each other, considering what some of my Uchiha friends had told me about them. Wait, you mean that there are Uchihas here in the west? Minato asked, with Danzo and Sasuke picking this up. You must be joking. The only Uchiha that there is alive is Sasuke Uchiha, my son-in-law. Well, maybe he's the one alive out in the east, but here in Eriador, Clan Uchiha is one of the 3 all-out shinobi clans. They had arrived here some 200 years, being outcasts that broke away from those warmongers, and settled on this continent. They don't rule much of land, but they have a small city of Kyotai on the coast north of Numenor and a couple of villages under their rule, Captain stated, with Sasuke listening to it with clear interest. Nice folks those Uchihas, friendly and not irksome and prideful like this eastern variant of them. But damn if they aren't some of the bloody fiercest and strongest warriors I had seen in my life. A single Uchiha is worth a squad of good cavaliers, but an Uchiha with their Sharingan on, and a true Manjikyu as they call their strongest. No wonder that they had managed to hold the 4 bordering them kingdoms, until Emperor and Semiramis had convinced them to join in. Now they are amongst the most loyal of Emperor's warriors and backbone of his Shadow Guard, and one of them is even a member of Imperial Royal Guard, 12 best of the best warriors in all of land and Emperor's personal bodyguards. An Uchiha clan out here, and ruling over a city and villages. They must be those forsaken traitors that had been exiled in Sengoku period. Sasuke recalled with arrogance. No matter, those weaklings are no true Uchiha elite like I am, but even so, they may be useful. They must be reminded who is their true leader, and whom they must serve. Sasuke already was picturing himself a loyal and obedient army of Sharingan users, with him in the lead, as he spoke up. Those Uchihas you speak of are but a filth and dirt, when compared to the true elite like me, man. They had been exiled so that they may not weaken my clan with their fickleness and misery. Uchihas out here in the west, and possibly with eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in great numbers. Such power must belong in Konoha, not some backwater empire like that. Perhaps it is time for the stray dogs to return home. Danzo thought to himself, already making plans on using these new Uchihas for himself. You know, lad, I've seen them in battle, and I can tell that even one without a Sharingan LL tear you a new one, and their head, Makoto Uchiha, is amongst the most powerful men in Eriador, known as Wraith of Numenor. Even Emperor himself hasn't been able to defeat him in a duel, and that man has defeated some of the strongest creatures and people I know of, Captain said with disdain to Sasuke, who only seemed to be getting more arrogant by the minute. And as for that keep, that was the only time Emperor had unleashed dragons in open battle, since before they only were protecting borders of their own nesting places and Numenor, But here, Semiramis herself led the attack, and she along with 10 more dragons had burned to the ground that keep, with the entire house of nobles in there. After it was over, Emperor ordered to burn the land that belonged to those people, salt it, and drain the wells, rivers and lakes out there as well, with all the forest being cut down. This was how he dealt with traitors and those that dared to betray his trust. Captain turned to the stunned public. The Emperor may wish and do only best for Numenor and all its people and races, but that doesn't mean he is weak or indecisive. Betray his trust, hurt those that he cares for, or threaten the people of his land, and nothing will stop him from making those that dare to do it pay with their lives. Keep that in mind, Konoha people, since he has long heard of you and knows what and who you are to him. From the way this guy speaks, sounds to me like those dragons are pretty much like Bijou, but only far more numerous and intelligent, and their strongest is the Empress if they were capable of leveling that place uninhabitable in number just 11 dragons, and there are possibly more of them, then it is obvious that angering Emperor is the last thing to do. Shikamaru has made conclusions in his mind about it all. Still, a separate Uchiha clan out here, with their own lands and serving to Emperor Sasuke will no doubt try to show off his authority to them, and Hokage might even try convincing them to return to Konoha, but I highly doubt that they'll want to go back to elemental nations at this point. After all, here they have like a small country of their own, and their man, even though this is troublesome, come to think of it. The noble clans of Konoha aren't even half as revered and politically powerful as the noble clans in capital. Makes you wonder of a few things. Uchiha clan of the West, and possibly with members holding Manjiki Sharingan. I recall reading of exiles from Uchiha clan that disappeared, but now it seems they've been doing quite well for themselves here, with the Sasuke now the only Uchiha in Konoha. Convincing even a portion of these Uchihas of West to come home to Konoha could prove to be another turning point in Konoha's path to victory. Minato was already seeing an opportunity of having more Uchihas in Konoha, fighting for the will of fire. You've said that Uchihas were one of the shinobi clans out there. What are the other two? Council Hamura asked of Captain. Oh, the other two? Well, the second one is Uzumaki clan, who are situated on Isle of Kai, northwest of here and close to Kyotai. Kushina widened her eyes at this one, as did others. And the other one had arrived here just some 4 years or so, the Hyuga clan, situated in Numenor City directly. Those Uzumaki fellas are pretty hot-headed, but also real tough and sturdy, plus loyal to a fault, being out from the east, having fled it after they were betrayed by their allies and having settled close to Uchihas. And nowadays those two clans are pretty much inseparable. My dear wife Rinko is actually one of them, and she works in Ministry of Trade and Exchange. They were actually among the first to join the Emperor and his cause, apparently recognizing him as one of their own or something. That's impossible. And my clan, the Uzumaki clan, it was destroyed during the war. I saw how the island of Whirlpool burned from the ship I stood on. Kushina shouted out at Captain, who shrugs it off. Rinko did tell me that lots of her clan mates died during the attack on her original home, but about half of clan made it out here and settled in close to Uchihas. Captain simply states to Kushina and others. You can ask the head of Uzumaki clan and a wife to Makoto Uchiha, Keiru Uzumaki, about it all. She is also in Numenor, representing it there. Kushina stiffened up when she heard that name. Keiru, my little sister? Kushina was in shock at hearing this name. Who knows, maybe? All I know is that Uzumaki and Uchiha clans were among the first to sign up and join the Emperor, and I'm damn proud of having fought side by side with them. Lot. Captain said with respect towards them. And as for those Hyuga clan, the Uzumaki clan is out here, and the Hyuga clan too? Minato was in shock mentally. Those Hyugas, could they be the ones that had disappeared from Konoha 4 years ago? If so, would that mean that Emperor had a hand in their arrival here? But if so, what would he gain from them? And why and how would he be able to do it, being thousands of miles away from Konoha? I'll have to find out about it. But more importantly, if those really are the Uzumaki from elemental nations, then they would most certainly like to go back their home, and with Konoha's protection, they wouldn't want to say no to this. Plus, they weren't here as long as Uchihas, so not much of roots have taken place here, and there ought to be those that remember Kushina as the heiress to clan, and she could effectively take control. And if we are lucky, the Uchihas will follow, since they are so close to each other as it seems. Emperor wouldn't have much saying in the internal matters of clan, so there is that. This is going to be a very fruitful embassy. The Hyuga clan is a clan of Konoha, and those must be the deserters and traitors that fled it years ago. Koharu spat at the mention of them. The Emperor will need to give those traitors back to Konoha, so that we may punish them, or else I might just throw you lot out in the ocean for sharks and nagas to feed upon. Captain was deadly serious, as he and his crewmates were all loyal to their sovereign, surprising Konoha delegates. The Emperor isn't bound to you, Konoha people, and is sure as hell ain't obligated to do anything, and if I hear even a word of threat towards him and his family, you can bet your asses will be out of my ship in no time. Trust me, I and my men here, we all served and fought alongside him, and we will fight and protect him even in peace. In confirmation to the captain's words, people rallied closer to him, standing near him and in clear readiness to execute his order to throw these people off their ship. Of course, we understand, and apologies for our rashness. We are just surprised that one of Konoha's clans would end up all the way in here. That is all. Minato had tried to defuse the situation, with Captain simply answering it. Don't know much, but rumor has it that those Hyuga clan weren't very much welcomed in your lands, so Emperor offered them and a few other people place in here. The council and Hokage were surprised to hear of it. From what I know, Clan Hyuga have been more or less integrating into police force of Numenor, but most of them some that are into trade, farming and diplomacy, with their heiress, Lady Hanabi Pendragon, being Emperor's consort and head of foreign affairs and diplomatic relations. If only Lady Hinata could be seen her sister now. When the name of Hanabi came up, and then one of Hinata, everyone's eyes went wide and shocked, for it meant that they, and possibly Naruto, could have survived here. Hanabi Hyuga is alive, and she's even a consort to Emperor? Wait, what was it about her sister Hinata just now? Did she, like those other friends of the fox demon, die out here, or did they make here all? Sakura asked of Captain, who glared at the pinkette. You better watch your mouth, girly, Captain simply said to her. Them fox demon and his friends, as you call them, are nothing short of legends and heroes of our empire. Each and every one of them have made sure to bring order and stability upon this land, standing as Emperor's closest allies and friends, and all but one had lived through it all. Lady Hanabi Pendragon, Emperor's consort and diplomat, voice of peace and reason in matters of politics, and one who had brought in night elves through negotiations and peaceful integration. She is Emperor's voice, and nobles, elves, even orcs respect her wisdom and shrewd mind on things. Gabriel Windrunner, or as he called himself Konoha Maru and whatever else, adopted brother to Emperor, and his closest friend. Emperor's hand and one of two most trusted and powerful, after Emperor and Empress, people in Empire, his will-bearer and closest of advisors. He stood by Emperor's side through the entire war, and is even a brother-in-law to him, for he is married to a younger sister of one Emperor's consorts. It is from his hands have I been gifted with this. Captain unsheathed his saber, gilded in gold and silver, made of steel of moon coloring. Honorary weapon, crafted in Steelhorn, dwarven capital, with Emperor's own name upon it, congratulating me for my services. Niji Hyuga, Empire's finest master of hand-to-hand combat and founder of Gentle Storm School, a school of his personal style of combat, with which he had defeated in single combat 5 of best King's Guards of Varakia's kingdom, known for their elite warriors, serves as Emperor's personal bodyguard. Lady Tenten Hyuga, wife to Niji Hyuga and Empress personal guard and mistress of 100 weapons, who single-handedly dealt a killing blow to a chieftain of Ebon Axe Orcs, stands as Empress personal guard. And then Captain let out a saddened sigh, as he looked out at the burned grounds. Then there was Lady Hinata Hyuga, gentle and kind lady, who believed in peace and unity even more than Emperor at times. She was a warrior, but she was able to stop wars with just words and gentle grace, and Latrua had spitted on it all, when they butchered her with such cruelty and savagery, that when her body was brought to the Emperor, the keep we stayed in had shook at the cries or rage and anguish. The only time when anyone had seen Emperor so defeated and weak was at that day. Lady Hinata was loved by all of us, elves, dragons, dwarves, soldiers, peasants, nobles, you name it. But none loved her more than Emperor, for what Latrua had done to her, he made them pay, every single one of them. Captain again turned to the people around him and spoke up. Before you all ask, everyone in here and there on continent have heard their tale and how they left the east, alongside the so-called fox demon you call him. So a word of advice, you try and insult them or the man they followed, be ready to pay with your lives for this. They are legends, heroes, and have earned the love of this land and its people, and none more so than Naruto Uzumaki. Captain saw deep surprise upon the faces of Konoha shinobi and counselors at a mention of this name. I think I'm done talking. Time to check up on the maps. Wait, just tell us, is our son, I mean Naruto, okay? Kushina asked of him, with Narumi and Menma, who didn't even consider their long-lost sibling for a brother, wondered why she even bothered. You speak so highly of his friends, but what of him? Him? Oh, he is well, I assure you, and he has played the most crucial role in all of this. Without him, there wouldn't be an emperor or the empire to begin with. Don't worry, sure, when you get in capital, you'll get to see him and you'll learn what he has been up to. Captain simply stated in a mysterious manner, returning to his quarters, while everyone had their own thoughts about it all. Naruto is still alive, and it appears like he is Emperor's most trusted man, alongside Hiruzen's grandson, or however he calls himself. He maybe left the shinobi world, but like Sensei likes to say, you can't take a shinobi out of a man. Minato simply thought as he was calculating what he would do. With Naruto and his friends so close to seats of power, it would be easy for them to convince the Emperor and Empress of what needs to be done for the good of Konoha. All I need to do is show Naruto that his family is ready to accept him, so I'll need to talk to him. He may be a little mad, but he is sure to listen and understand what is best for his family, him and everyone. And if he is close to Uzumaki and Uchihas there, then all the more reason for him to get back to Konoha. My son, even though your services for Konoha were no longer in need, you still can bring what is best for Konoha out of this situation. Perhaps there was more to you than I originally thought, beyond of your initial destiny. Naruto, Kaoru, my clan, my family is still alive and is out here, in the west. Kushina thought to herself. All this time they were here, on foreign land and away from their true home. Don't worry, my son, sister, once I'm there, I'll beat that emperor to a pulp. But I will get you and our clan back home, Databane, So the Dobe is still alive and is close to that weakling of an emperor. Figures that losers will stick together, but all this talk about Uchihas here in the west and the Empress. She must be very powerful for a dragon, and to command my clan into battle. Perhaps if I show her the true power of an elite Uchiha, she'll see that her weak husband is worthless, and I'll have myself not just a powerful matriarch of Uchiha clan, but a full empire to rule, and not be a husband to these two bitches. Sasuke thought to himself evilly. So, Naruto is actually an empire, and seems to have been contributing a lot to its creation. Looks like the lessons he has learned from me did get him far, though it is a shame that he had abandoned, apparently, shinobi way. Oh well, Kakashi thought to himself about Naruto, before he went to his book. That Gaki is still kicking, and is close to the imperial family? Oh ho, I think I just find my own new goldmine for my next book. If the rumors among men are true about the beauty of the consorts and empress, I'm sure he has missed me, and if I promise to patch things with Minato and Kushina, he'll do anything I ask for it, no doubt. Jiraiya already had a perverted smile upon his face, and thoughts racing through his skull. Konohamaru, you've probably grown so much over these years, and to become an aide and right-hand man to Emperor. Your parents would be proud of you, but to change your name and your family name, did you hate us all so much that you would do all this? Foolish boy, it was all done for the betterment of Konoha, and you've turned your back to it all, even smirching yourself with this name. Gabriel, I hope I get to see what you have become, Maru, and tell you how much you've dishonored yourself with all this. Asuma, with a mix of sadness, fury and anger, thought to himself, as he planned to teach his nephew a lesson of loyalty once he saw him. Hinata, I had hoped that we would again meet, so that I could embrace, but I am sorry I wasn't there for you, my girl, and I hope that the Emperor had loved with all his heart, not like that idiot Naruto Uzumaki. Kurenai thought with sadness when she heard of her apprentice's death. Niji Tenen, it shames me as your teammate that your fires of youth have left our youthful village, but now that I know how high you've risen, I shall prove to you that I have not been falling back and that my flames of youth remain the strongest as always. You just wait when I prove it to you in a spar, with Guy-sensei at our side again. Rock Lee was already having his flames on in his eyes. So, Hinata's dead. Well, there's hope that her sister will see a true alpha and slap Emperor away from me. Kiba, thinking with his nether regions over his head, quickly forgot of Hinata in hope of getting to himself her younger sister. So, Hokage's son has survived and is here as well. Apparently there is more to that brat than what we thought. Well, from his position, he and others will be able to aid Konoha through swaying the Emperor. Time to remind them of their place in this world. Elders thought to themselves, as the ship carried their procession towards the capital of Numenor Empire. 4 days later. Numenor City, a glorious and monumental sight of a great and mighty city, surrounded thick white walls, large enough for 2 wagons to stand side by side and ride, with walls as high as some of the mountains, with towers reaching even higher, and they surrounded a giant city, brimming with white, gold, silver and more, with life brimming in there, heard even at ships still a couple of miles away. The size of Numenor City was astonishing, bigger than the capital of Hi no Kuni, possibly even larger than all of Konoha with its training grounds, all made of white stone, with gilded metals in it, and the roads into city seemed to be filled with travelers, civilians, travelers and more. Konoha delegation looked at it all with a mix of awe, shock and even envy. As the ship began to close onto harbor, Konoha delegation looked at 2 cliffs, walled up, and at the 2 fortresses, flanking the entrance in the harbor of the city, manned, massive and standing proudly displaying the might of empire to all that wished to make an entrance here. The distance between the 2 was probably less than half a kilometer in sea, but they still seemed very close and overlooked the seemingly tiny ship as it passed into the harbor. The Twin Lions Fortresses. Captain called the fortresses to Konoha's delegation. The on the left is the North Lion Fortress, and on the right is the South Lion Fortress. Imposing, ain't they? Each has a garrison of a brigade worth of men, and is armed with 80 cannons on each, all loaded, primed and waiting for whatever poor sod decides to escape or force his entrance into the harbor. About 40 of those dwarven killing machines are looking at us right now. Why would someone build such massive structures, if there are no catapults? And what are those cannons you speak of? Kushina asked of Captain, who looked at her, as if he was told the stupidest thing ever. What? Are they some kind of better catapults, or something better than those archaic things? Well, they ain't catapults, but something really better and more powerful. I just need to remind myself that you are just the tourists here, that's all. Captain looked up at the North Lion Fortress, seeing a special signal over the battlements for him and his men. Okay. Hard to starboard, boys. Greg, lead us to First Royal Pierce. Captain gave out orders. Looks like Emperor has decided to honor you, Konoha. Of course he would. He is to meet the most powerful and prestigious people in his life, Kohara stated in a prideful manner, with Captain simply shaking his head at this one, as the ship was reaching the end of their destination. The First Royal Pierce resided the nearest to the Imperial Palace, a massive structure, a 3rd citadel on the city, walled, with towers and a great massive castle standing proudly. The palace seemed as massive and imposing as it looked grandiose and great, being large enough to seemingly house all of Konoha inside with more than enough place for some additional guests. There apparently was a big garden close to it as well, as it overlooked the harbor, filled with trees, green and lush with flowers, a truly marvelous sight. As the ship was docking, Konoha's delegation saw that they were already being expected, as a group of men, dressed in steel-plate armor from head to toe, armed with shields and spears, with a sword at their side. This seemed almost laughable to shinobi, to see people dressed in so much steel, that they wouldn't be able to even move in it at all, much less run or fight. Sasuke even laughed openly at them and their attire, with Sakura, Kiba and Menma following the suit. In their mind, the only true warriors were shinobi and only, so these people looked like barbarians to them and were nothing short of idiots, completely ignorant to the fact of complete cultural, philosophical and overall core differences between East and West. However, their attention was soon on someone else. Namely, 3 persons that stood behind the soldiers, who formed up into 2 lines and made a passage between them for the delegation. The first one was a young, beautiful woman, dressed in white and violet long, tight dress with the violet pattern on her skirts and waist. Her figurine was one that would leave men dazed for days, with impressive bust, shown through the cleavage of her dress, long beautiful neck, wide hips and beautiful face, adorned with a small silver tiara with sapphire adorning her forehead, complemented with long flowing black hair, with 2 bangs on each side, and pale Hyuga eyes. Next to her stood a tall, handsome man with brown short hair, blue eyes, strong masculine build, bearing resemblance to Asuma, though a distant one. His dress was one of a plated white and golden armor, made in a form of scales of a dragon, covering his shoulders, waist, arms and legs, with scale and chain mails in between the gaps. On his back rested a long great sword, with a golden hilt in form of a dragon's head, and next to him stood someone that ladies of Konoha instantly grew jealous with, adding her to the Hyuga standing near her. It was a young, very beautiful woman, with grace and unparalleled attractiveness. Dressed in leather and chainmail armor, with a tabard over her waist, she still drew in envious sights, as her face was without any defect, with unnaturally blue eyes long, as if whiskers of a cat, brows, and long, pointy ears. She, as they all recalled from descriptions of Captain, was a high elf, and apparently a warrior, with 2 short swords on her hips and bow in her hand with arrows in a quiver. As Konoha's delegation disembarked and came close to the 3, they bowed lightly to them, before a Hyuga girl spoke to them. Lord Hokage, ambassadors, honorable guests from Konoha, their Imperial Majesties welcome you to Numenor City and our empire. I am Hanabi Pendragon, Imperial Head Diplomat and Ambassador, Lady Consort and their Majesties' personal representative, in foreign lands. Hanabi introduced herself with grace and respect, hiding away her personal feelings so well that none could tell. Allow me to introduce you Lord Gabriel Windrunner, Emperor's Hand and High Lord of Dundane and his wife, Lady Verisa Windrunner, Ranger General of Dundane and Lady Commander of City Guard. Said persons nodded, with Asuma not managing to hold it in him and speak up. Lord Gabriel, is that how you call yourself these days, Konomaru? Asuma spoke out with contempt, with Kurenai already trying to stop her husband from ending this diplomatic mission before it began. Abandoning your honorable name, our clan name and even fornicating with some inhuman here, all after running away from what has been given to you your parents, my father, and everyone in Konoha, they would be ashamed of you. Hello to you as well, Asuma. I hear that you and Kurenai have married and are with a child now. I wish you and your child the best of blessings. Konomaru, no, Gabriel replied politely with a strong and powerful voice, seemingly not even fazed by the insults towards him and his wife. However, Asuma, do recall that you stand on a foreign land, and you just had the gall to insult not just an honorable woman, but a decorated war hero, one of the great heroines of Empire, and my wife. Considering that you are new here, I will allow this to slide, but apologies are most certainly in order. With each word, Gabriel's voice grew in power and strength, and by the end even Minato and Jiraiya almost shook at instant fear. Asuma Sarutobi, please keep in mind that unlike in elemental nations, Eriador is populated by more than just human race, and within Numenor Empire, insults and violence of racial and national nature are prohibited and punishable. Hanabi took word, making a point before Konoha. If the offended party wishes, you shall be incarcerated and trialed. You may be a part of diplomatic envoy, but you are either a member of foreign government, participant in negotiations from your daimyo, nor you are a persona with special privileges, so you are granted no diplomatic immunity. Therefore once you are arrested, there will be trial, I assure you. Asuma, please do not harden our work here and apologize. Minato commanded, with Asuma, growling, spoke up. I apologize for my earlier words, Lady Verisa. I have not assumed that there were other races, aside the human ones. Asuma grumbled out, with Verisa accepting it. I accept your apologies on my behalf, Asuma Sarutobi, but I would watch your mouth, if I were you. You will find that Emperor and Empire as a whole holds no kindness towards narrow-minded and ill-mouthed. Verisa said in an insulted and cold manner, should I find you insulting my husband one more time, guards and shackles shall become the least of your concerns. And for your information, insulting hand of the Emperor is equal to insulting Emperor himself. Asuma paled a little bit, as did the others at this one, while guardsmen were seemingly on the ready to apprehend them all. Now, Verisa, no need to scare away our guests. There'll be plenty of time and more appropriate places for that soon enough. Gabriel chuckled, before he spoke up in an official tone. Our Emperor and Empress are glad that you have arrived safely and hope that you are ready to present your propositions, and officially introduce yourselves before them and the court. Me, Lady Hanabi and my dear wife shall escort to the palace and throne room, if you are prepared. Yes, that would be lovely. Minato agreed with the others, as they began to move towards the palace. I must admit, Konohamaru, you have grown into a very fine man. From the looks at you, it is almost impossible to see a once young brash child that used to challenge Hiruzen on daily occasion for the Hokage's hat, Kohara said with a small smile, with Verisa glaring a little at her. It is a shame that you others have dishonored yourselves and abandoned your true home and duties before Konoha. Your grandfather would be greatly ashamed of you right now, she said with admonishment, with Gabriel not even budging at this one. Counselor Koharu, I believe that we are long past the point of nitpicking and nostalgia guilt, and for your general information, I go by Gabriel now, not Konohamaru, a name bestowed upon me and by High Bishop after I had converted into Light's Fate, and a name I am proud of. Gabriel reminded them all. My past name and previous deeds have remained in the East, whereas here I have made myself my own name and fame, and considering the fact that Hand of the Emperor and High Lord of Dundane are a higher in hierarchy, when compared to Hokage, I believe I have surpassed general assumptions and expectations of my persona. And what do these two titles mean, Windrunner or whatever you call yourself? Sasuke asked arrogantly, earning a glare from Verisa. And does this elf wife of yours know that there are finer men from East, when compared to you? Like me, an Uchiha elite. That earned an approving look from Sakura and a glare from Narumi. I have seen a lot of men, most of them much like you, boy, and I found them wanting and pathetic. Verisa couldn't hide a smirk at a look of insult upon Sasuke. As for my husband, I found Gabriel everything that a woman could ask of a husband and then some more to add up, the best of among the best for me in East, West, North and South. Verisa, you make me blush. Gabriel chuckled at this one. And as for the titles, High Lord is a noble title of a sovereign that controls a geographically and historically formed land, a small kingdom if you may. Dundane in one such kingdom, one of oldest and larger ones, bordering High Elves' kingdom. Your best counterpart to it will be a daimyo of a minor country, like a daimyo of Wave or Tea, and as for Hand of the Emperor it is a second to Emperor's title, his closest advisor, minister, and so forth. You could compare to a title of Shogun of daimyo, only with administrative, political, economic and military spheres of business included in. So, as you can see, in terms of status, Sasuke, I currently appear to be standing quite a bit higher than you and your Lord Hokage. Lady Hanabi here also is in a similar position as I am, though her holdings and title differ from mine. Hey, Hanabi, so I've heard about your big sis's death. A real shame, if you asked me, she was a rare beauty. Kiba decided to try his chance with Hanabi now, completely forgetting of tact and etiquette. Listen, why don't you show me and others around later on? I could tell you of the adventures of me and Hinata, plus we could. Kiba Inuzuka, in case you have forgotten, or simply did not take notice of, I am a married lady of noble position, tasked with many responsibilities and duties of great importance and urgency to the empire and crown. I have neither time, nor desire to forsake my vows to my husband and pursue any relations, romantic or friendly, with a person such as yourself, Hanabi said in a strong, diplomatic, yet completely harsh and powerful tone. If you wish to explore the city, I am sure you and others will be able to find a guide, and as for my sister and her death, address her name in my presence without respect next time, and you will find yourself in not so comfortable position and place, alongside your dog. Oh, come on Hana-chan, I was just trying to be friends with you and… Kiba, shut your mouth already. It is enough you have the gall to speak so incorrectly to a lady, but also to be informal, and so unofficial with her is an insult to her and you, so better keep quiet. Kurenai shut her former student, with Kiba mumbling something about playing hard to get Lady Hanabi. What my ill-mannered student meant is that we offer you our condolences and sympathies, concerning the fate of your older sister. We heard she was a great woman, and what befell her was atrocious and inhumane. I personally sorry for what had happened to her as well. She was like a little sister to me. Kurenai spoke in a diplomatic way, with Hanabi responding, Thank you for your words, Kurenai. My sister always spoke only the best of you as well, and even here, she continued to follow your example, solving matters in less violent and more humane manner, as you've taught her. Hanabi said to Kurenai in a softer way, I am yet to match her in art of diplomacy, but I believe that her spirit is still with us, and protects me and our husband. I always thought that your sister was crushing on that idiot Naruto, practically being in love with him, but not to same extent as I and Sasuke-kun, Sakura said without any tact, getting glared by Verisa, only with far more hatred in it. Did that dumb fool run off for someone better, leaving her for this emperor guy or something? Though, with the way she dressed and how fat she was, only someone who simply pitied her would even hold her hand and… Lord Hokage, if you do not mind, please gag this woman before I send an arrow through her skull for these words. Verisa couldn't take someone insulting either Hinata or Naruto, as she stopped and turned towards Sakura, with Gabriel also looking stressed. I have seen harpies with more compassion, and those creatures are among the foulest I had seen. You say another word about Hinata, Naruto or about their relations, and I'll personally throw you in dungeons, but not before silencing you for life. Why, do you even know who I am, you pointy-eared? Suddenly Hanabi raised her hand, waved it, as a white-blue glow escaped it, and Sakura suddenly became silenced, unable to say a word or anything, with the entire Konoha's procession shocked at what had happened. Thank you, Hanabi. Another word from her, and this would be the shortest diplomatic mission in history. Verisa thanked her friend, while Jiraiya voiced everyone's question. What was that? Some kind of handless jutsu, or a fuinjutsu, but I didn't feel any chakra flowing here. Jiraiya spoke up, with Hanabi speaking up. What you have witnessed is what people of Numina refer to as magic, an arcane magic to be more precise. I have a certain degree of mastery over magical arts, so I am capable of manipulating it into spells, conjurations and other forms. Hanabi informed them all. A silencing spell shall keep Sakura quiet for as long as I wish. Unlike in elemental nations, Eriador and its inhabitants possess a greater variety in sources of power, with chakra and senjutsu being only two of them here. Such arts are, however, highly protected and prohibited from learning by their respective mentors and trainers by foreigners that do not possess emperors and empress allowance for this. I believe it is understandable that my lieges would not want to destabilize political world through carelessness and cause international conflicts and wars, so do not expect to be allowed to learn anything of magic and its variations, as well as other sources of power. And I warn you, theft of material concerning those subjects, unsanctioned training in those arts by foreigners and other transgressions of similar character are punishable by death. This goes for you especially, Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha. Gabriel looked at an insulted man and angered Uchiha. Your reputation and the fact of you possessing Sharingan are well known here, so watch your step. Unlike Konoha and Haino Kuni, law and judgment affect all without acceptations, elites or not. The group had reached the palace's gates, with them opening up and letting them go further by a grand hall, until they reached the throne room. The throne room was every bit as great as it could have been, with high ceiling, large open area with tables, seats, chairs and pillars, on which hung the banners of the Empire's subjects and domains, as well as Empire's sigil, a golden lion's head on a blue field. The hall was filled with lords, ladies, elves, dwarves and even some orcs, who drew most of the attention from Konoha, with their green and dark brown skins, astonishingly strong builds, great heights and barbarian-like appearances. They reminded them of legends of Oni, only now they were made flesh. Not locking eyes on them for too long, Konoha proceeded ahead towards the two thrones, one white and made in fashion of lions and the other black and made in fashion of dragons, elevated by 10 steps above the floor level, with the black one being already occupied. In it sat a young, very beautiful black-haired woman, with long hair, with golden eyes, pointy ears much like Verisa. She wore black and gold dress, reaching to her ankles, tightly hugging her superb waist, large bust and most impressive figurine. She had an aura and looks of regality, a woman of truest power in every sense. Near her stood a young attractive woman with brown hair, made into a braid behind, dressed in a black and golden Chinese-style dress, with armored gloves and bracelets, standing near the Empress and ready to strike if needed. It was clearly Tenten, but now she was grown and very different. The elevated thrones and podium on which they stood was also surrounded by 11 men and women, all differing, yet powerful in each and every one of them, with weapons and armors of their own choosing. Humans, elves high and knight, dwarf and even an orc among them, men and women, hiding away their faces and not. It was clearly the Imperial Royal Guard, which now separated the podium from 3 Easterners, ambassadors that were in talks with the Empress. Minato and others recognized them as ambassadors of Kumo, Iwa and Oto, with Kabuto Yakushi representing Oto here. Your Excellencies, it pleases me and my husband to know that your respective nations are recovering from the devastating effects of plagues and famine. Empress addressed the ambassadors. People of Numenor have heard of the blight that befell your lands, and of countless lives lost. I hope that our assistance in combating the aftermath of this horror has been successful and that soon your countries shall thrive and prosper in peace and stability. Your Imperial Majesty, no words can express how much Kumo and Iwa appreciate the kindness and help you and Emperor have given us. Your humanitarian help, grain, food, medicaments and resources have saved our countries from another deadly winter. Our daimyos have instructed me to offer you his sincerest gratitude and sends you and your husband this gift. Ambassador from Kumo motioned his men to bring forth 4 crates, which were filled with silver and platinum ingots. Our countries are mountainous and are rich in ores, but poorer in plains and fertile lands, so fields with grain and forests with wood worth more than these ingots of silver and platinum. We offer them as our sign of gratitude and to demonstrate that your kindness and gifts have not been forgotten and exploited for nothing. We thank you for such generous gift and accept it. Empress smiled to them, as her servants took the crates away. My husband and I share a vision that in peace, we must extend our hand to help out those that have found themselves in despair, and show them that no hope is lost. Great and kind words, Your Imperial Majesty. It is a shame that your example is not followed by some other, more aggressive and insensitive countries. Kabuto and other ambassadors already knew that Konoha's delegation was present. My Lord Daimyo and Lord Orochimaru send their gratitude for the help that Numenor has provided in combating famine and plagues. They hope that our gift has reached you safely and without any harm. It has, Ambassador Yakushi, and we thank you for such gift. Though Oto no Kuni is a smaller in size country, your gift shows that it is as dignified and strong as those of greater sizes. I welcome you in our capital, esteemed guests, and hope you will find your stay here comfortable and productive. The ambassadors bowed before the Empress and joined in with the mass of nobility and court, while Konoha's delegation has stepped forward, led by Hanabi, Gabriel and Verisa, who instantly bowed before their Empress. High Lord Gabriel, Lady Hanabi, Lady General Verisa, I see you bring to us the awaited guests from afar. My Empress, allow me to introduce to you the official envoy of High no Kuni and its members. Hanabi went on to introduce every single one of them without delay and in orderly fashion, while some of the nobles looked with contempt at Konoha, including ambassadors from other elemental nations, as Hanabi has spoken and ended. Esteemed guests of High no Kuni, Lord Hokage and counselors, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you Her Imperial Majesty, Empress Semiramis, first of her name and title, Queen and aspect of Black Dragonflight, sovereign ruler of Second Numina Empire, Kingdom of Quel'Thalas, Ashenvale Dominion, Confederacy of Draenor, Steelhorn Kingdom, Lady Protector of Kingdoms Dalaran, Kultiras, Gilneas and Westerosi Kingdoms. Milady, if we may? Lady Hanabi, High Lord and Lady Ranger Windrunner, please remain near, for I and my husband will want your counsel on this matter. Semiramis motioned them, as she looked at Minato and others of High no Kuni, who bowed to her, save for Menma, Sasuke, Narumi in a show of disrespect, earning glares and insulted cries from the court. I was not aware that you have arrived with other sovereigns, for I cannot think of any other reason why would your fellow companions not follow etiquette, Lord Hokage. Menma, Sasuke, Narumi, bow before her, now. Minato ordered them, and they reluctantly did so before he spoke in an official and diplomatic way. Forgive us, Your Imperial Majesty, they were simply 2 days by your appearance, and the aura of power you possess. You have my sincerest apologies, as their father and a father-in-law of Sasuke Uchiha, and as their Hokage. I have heard of Clan Uchiha of the East, and of Sasuke Uchiha in particular from my closest friends and advisors. Empress saw how Sasuke rose up arrogantly, smirking at her, to which Empress simply scoffed at. Apparently, the stories I have heard do bear truth, for it is said that Clan Uchiha of the East has succumbed to just one, having been exterminated for their misdeed and arrogance. You are wrong. My clan was betrayed by my own brother, Itachi Uchiha, whom I shall hunt down and kill in order to avenge my fallen clan, for only an Uchiha can best another one of his blood. Sasuke arrogantly stated, and I have heard that you harbor within your realm criminals and exiles of my clan, who cowardly left their rightful place and ran away. I demand that you turn them into me, Empress Semiramis, for I am true Uchiha, and someone who is far more worthy of both leading them, and your empire with you. Sasuke smirked, as an echoing shocked gasp from ladies was heard, as well as cries of anger and fury from others, but a single raised palm from Semiramis was enough to silence all. I see that you are fond of bad jests, Sasuke Uchiha. I hope that you improve your sense of humor, for if such declaration repeats itself, I shall see to it that your shoulders become lighter, with the removal of your head. Inhabitants of Eriador and Numenor Empire in particular are not fond of foul and bad-tasted jokes, unlike in High no Kuni, apparently, Semiramis said in a strong fashion, as Sasuke simply scoffed at it. Now then, Lord Hokage, to what do we owe yours and your entourage's presence? Your Imperial Majesty, as you may have already heard, Land of Fire is currently the strongest elemental nation, with many allies and 2 major nations as our closest partners. One of Fire Daimyo's official representatives spoken up to her. Our land is vast and plentiful. Our people are rich and prosperous, with our merchants being only rivaled by your Phoenix Trading Company. An official alliance with our nation would most certainly benefit to you and your empire, for it stands as the most powerful country and domain in the East. A country with puppets for allies, warmongers for rulers and thieves for people. Ambassador from IWA spoke up, drawing attention of Fire Delegation and Konoha's shinobi. Your Imperial Majesty, I believe you and your esteemed husband are well aware that High no Kuni and its shinobi hidden village, Konoha, have been putting to the sword and dagger all those that have defied them and dared to break the treaties with them. For that, Konoha simply invaded them, ousting rightful governments and daimyos, all but annexing the lands and assuming control of countries and their peoples. Wind and Water are 2 such prime examples, with their daimyos being literal family of Fire Daimyo, while Suna and Kiri are now simply training camps for pro-Konoha shinobi, and not to mention just how taxing and cruel Konoha treats its allies, especially Land of Wind, or as some already say in the East, Land of Bones, for it's all but deserted now, with only corpses of starved and killed littering the desert. And now, it seeks to expand throughout our respective lands and exploit its resources. Your Imperial Majesty, I urge you not to give in to their offerings and send them out of here. Perhaps Ambassador of IWA would prefer to reconsider his words, for it seems like you are misspelling the truth for lies. Maybe you require a visit back in your homeland, so as to refresh your head, before he is taken out by a foreign illness and homesickness. Danzo spoke up in his usual manner, with Ambassador of IWA literally fuming with anger. Why you, Your Imperial Majesty, this man, no, this war hawk is a known war criminal, munder for power and threat to peace and stability. I plead to you to shackle him up and throw him into the dungeons for what he has committed and as to prevent any further crimes done by him. ambassador of Iwa asked of the Empress. Ambassador Lao, your opinion on the matter has been heard and will be taken into consideration, but I will not allow your proposal to happen, Semiramis replied to him respectfully, before turning her gaze to the delegation. However, I will not allow guests in my empire to insult and threaten in any manner official representatives of other countries. Danzo Shimura, I believe? Your reputation is also well known in my empire, as well as your infamy of a warmonger. Official ambassador of Fire Daimyo or not, should there be found evidence of your illegal activity within our realm, or any further acts such as these, you will answer for them with your life. Semiramis did not wait for his reply, before continuing on. Lord Hokage, counselors, ambassadors of Hino Kuni, the words surrounding your nation and the statuses of its allies and comrades in arms have long reached our court and the ears of me and my husband. And we are most distressed and concerned with the actions of your shinobi village in particular, with one matter especially being a cause of great worry. I believe you remember the matter concerning one known as Naruto Uzumaki, Lord Hokage, as well as how it was handled? Your Imperial Majesty, I can see how some of the actions of my village have distressed you, but allow me to assure you that Minato had tried to talk his way out of this one. But then suddenly the doors of the throne room opened up, with the announcer speaking up, announcing, His Imperial Majesty. All of court and royal guards had bowed their heads in respect and honor, as the heavy footsteps stepped through the throne hall. Konoha's delegation decided to test their luck and looked towards the emperor and instantly froze in place, as cold shock came upon them like a hammer. Through the room stepped a tall, handsome young man, dressed in blue-plated armor with chain mail in between the parts, gilded with gold, with lions as his shoulder plates, a strange two-bladed sword, with one blade being shorter than the other and both held by a glowing golden start built in just out of guard, and a queer handle resting on his hip. The man was tall, masculine and strong-looking, with long golden hair made into a ponytail behind, sky-blue eyes, and a handsome strong face, one that looked like a mirror image of Minato Namikaze, only stronger, more regal and powerful. He exuded an aura of might, dignity, power and absolute obedience, and respect for his authority. As he walked past the delegation, he spared a little glance at them all, letting smallest of satisfied smirks appear on his face. Minato and Kushina looked in absolute shock at the man, while Kakashi and Jiraiya refused to believe what they saw, along with many others. Sasuke, Kiba, Sakura, Narumi and Menma were seething with anger, jealousy and envy, as they could not comprehend and believe that this man, this loser, in their eyes, was now the most powerful man in the world. Counselors were shaking in fear and anger at this man, including Danzo, while the rest Konoha's shinobi and daimyo ambassadors chose to be silent and shocked to the core. Gabriel gave only a short bow to him, with Hanabi following the suit, as Emperor's personal bodyguard Niji Hyuga took his post near his liege, who kissed the hand of his wife. Milady, I hope the court has not tired you while I was away. The Emperor spoke to her softly and caringly, with Semiramis responding in kind. Not at all, my love, but it warms my heart and soul for you to stand by me. Semiramis smiled to him, as the two to their respective seats. As you can see, we have the most awaited of guests attending, my love. Indeed, milady? I personally have been waiting a long time to meet them, face to face. Emperor smiled a little, as he turned to Hanabi. Hanabi, if you may do the honors? With pleasure, your Imperial Majesty. Hanabi didn't hide his smile at this one, as she turned to the delegation and announced her husband and liege. Esteemed guests from Hino Kuni, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Naruto Pendragon, first of his name and title, sovereign ruler of Second Numenor Empire, Kingdom of Quel'Dalas, Ashenvale Dominion, Confederacy of Draenor and Steelhorn Kingdom, Lord Protector of Kingdoms of Kultiras, Gilneas, Dalaran and Westerosi Kingdoms, High Lord Paladin of Order of Argent Hand, Defender of Faiths and Magi and the Lion of the West. Hanabi ended with a smile, as Naruto spoke up. Welcome, Lord Fourth Hokage, and his entourage. Naruto greeted them with a smile on his face, but with dread filling their hearts. It has been a very long time, hasn't it, dear father? Konoha's delegates stood just there, as they'd heard the Emperor of the Second Numenor Empire, a man that has built the biggest empire and nation this world has ever seen, in just 5 years' time. He was a man of legend, someone before whom they came to ask for his support and for him to lend his strength to them, so that Land of Fire could expand, for will of fire to take root in all of elemental nations. And after hearing that Naruto and his friends were actually in the empire, and have taken up the positions of power, hopes were lifted for Konoha, who had expected that they would help out their home, in hopes of returning there. Minato had believed that his own son, who would be ecstatic to see his real family alive and well, would be more than happy to assist him. Konoha has made grand plans of exploiting the empire for their own needs, forgetting that the rulers of the said empire may not be as gullible as easy to trick as they may think. They had thought that the emperor will be on their side instantly, helping the noble and just cause of Konoha, assisting the legendary Yellow Flash and Fourth Hokage in his trials. They were wrong, for the man that now sat on the imperial throne, the man that had forged this land of kingdoms, principalities, tribes and nations, constantly warring with one another, into the mightiest and most powerful empire this man has known. He was a man that knew of Konoha and its deep-rooted and hidden agendas all too well. After all, he himself once was a part in their schemes and plots, one that was discarded having long served its purpose, forgotten forever, assumed to have completely expired beyond his original purpose. And even when Konoha had heard of him again, they believed that he would have forgotten and forgiven them, and would play a part in their grand plans, also that he could return back to Konoha, as Minato, his wife, children and everyone else thought. But Naruto Pendragon, adopted son of Uther Pendragon, titled Lightbringer, Emperor of Second Numenor Empire and Lion of the West, did not forget anything, and he forgiven nothing to Konoha. 10 years have passed since his exile, since he was simply thrown away like a trash, and now this same trash was the man these people came to ask for an alliance and help. And they thought that he would simply give it to them, like that? Well, they were in for quite a surprise, since Naruto was no longer that gullible loud idiot, but a man of great power, with greatest of responsibilities of making his empire prosper, protect its inhabitants, and the kingdoms he is charged with defending. He was now the most powerful man in the world, and in all right, he could have simply expelled Konoha out of here, invaded their lands and destroyed the High no Kuni. Hell, his own Shadow Guard and Watchers, a special Night Elven organization, tasked with internal protection of the empire, could have destroyed Konoha within a matter of weeks. However, Naruto didn't do it, not because he was merciful, or because he had forgiven them, no. It was simply now beneath him, not even worthy of his attention and resources to spare, not when he had far more important issues and business to deal with, like with Westerosi kingdoms and their drunken king of 5 kingdoms, previous of 7 kingdoms, or the raiders from Iron Islands, that pillaged coastlines from Reach to Earthly Plains, and not to mention the Ogre Empire in far southeast. Konoha and its problems weren't even worthy of a second thought to Naruto now. But now, with his own family, former friends, mentors and even the elders coming right here before him, now Naruto had time for them, and he actually reveled a little bit in this small fact, an acknowledgement of his importance, since it was Konoha itself that had come all the way here to seek his help. This brought a little warm, satisfying feeling inside his heart, but he didn't allow it to fester any more than he already had. He needed to be reasonable, practical and think of every factor in these talks. After all, he was the Emperor of Numenor Empire, and one that first put the well-being and successful prosperity of his empire before his own vengeance. But still, another small jolt of satisfaction came to him, as he observed the reaction these people. He has changed, completely and without looking back, having abandoned the ways of shinobi and embraced the way of a warrior and light, like his adopted father. He was taller than his blood father and Jiraiya, with more muscles than both of them combined and Guy would be jealous of. Whiskers and spikiness and hair were gone, as well as all of baby fat, but a couple of small scars were added up in their place, one over his left brow, and the other on his right jaw. He wore full plate armor and wielded an ancient and powerful elven sword of Charlemagne, gifted to him by the king of High Elves. He was a military commander and powerful politician, shrewd and cunning, a diplomat when needed, and a warrior when must. He no longer was that loud-mouthed genin who wanted to be a Hokage, for now he was the emperor. Konoha's delegates and shinobi all were looking at Naruto with various looks and emotions, ranging from utter shock and confusion by Minato, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Shikamaru, Asuma and Kurenai, with hopes and tears by Kushina, and the most prominent, envy, anger, jealousy and hatred by Sasuke, Menma, Narumi, Ino, Sakura, elders, Danzo and daimyo's officials. All of them did not expect to see someone whom they saw as the failure and expired instrument now become the one before whom they were forced to prostrate themselves. Many found it unbearable, while some seemed to think in their deluded minds that this was even better, like one Minato, who spoke in a hopeful manner. And Naruto? My son, how much you have grown. And Minato, having heard Naruto address him as father, was filled with hopes that he would be successful and swaying his emperor's son on his side. But he was wrong. Minato Namikaze, in case your eyes fail you, allow me to remind you that you stand in the presence of His Imperial Majesty, a person in status and power far outclassing all of you here. Hanabi didn't miss an opportunity to remind Konoha of their place. Unless you and the rest of your entourage to be educated in court's etiquette and tact, then you shall remember your position here. His Imperial Majesty, though have addressed you as father, merely acknowledges already a well-known and commonly known fact, that you are his blood parent, nothing more and less. Lady Hanabi speaks true, though since we are merciful, we will forgive this minor mistake. After all, it is our first meeting in 25 years now, Naruto simply said in powerful and authoritarian manner, catching a look of small shock in Minato's eyes, as well as some others. Back then, I was but a newly born child, left by you and your wife here in Konoha, for a cold-hearted and practical purpose, one that I had completed, and was disposed of. As Sochi, please, you have to. Kushina had tried to talk, but she was suddenly pulled down to the ground by adamantine chains, much like her own, only these were even of greater power than hers, forcing her to bend before Naruto, denying her to look him in the eye. Kushina Namikaze, you have been given a clear warning of how to address His Imperial Majesty, and considering how you and your husband have handled him, I believe that everyone here agrees with me when I say that you and this man you call your husband do know to have the right to call him your son. Kushina had recognized the voice, as she looked up and saw a beautiful, younger version of her mother, with red eyes, crimson hair and dressed in vibrant red and golden fully closed dress, with chains extending from her arm, And as a matter of a fact, you and your children here have no right of being called Uzumaki. Kushina paled at a shock, while her son wasn't going to listen to that slighting of him and his family. Who the hell do you think you are? We are the true Uzumaki, and you are nothing more than Menma was about to say his piece, but he was suddenly silenced when his frame hit the floor, hard, as the magical powers pulled him downwards, casted by a young girl, a near-perfect copy of the Uzumaki head. Shut your mouth, runt. You address Lady Keiru Uzumaki Uchiha, Lady of Kai and Kyotai, leader of Uzumaki clan, chosen by her people and the official representative of Uzumaki and Uchiha in Numenor. Address her with a proper respect, and if you slight her, I will personally make you regret you ever raising your voice against my lady mother, she said with clear hatred and spite towards Menma and Kushina. Your daughter's fierce loyalty and desire to protect your honor are an impressive sight to behold, Lady Keiru. Semiramis complimented them, motioning them to stop before she turned her attention back to Konoha's delegates. Lord Hokage, for your sakes, restrain your family members and the rest of your entourage from any further accidents. We are willing to listen to what you have to say and give thought to it, but our patience and benevolence are not infinite. Another such act of insult, and the ones who incurred it will suffer, as will you personally. Semiramis, much like her imperial husband, wasn't going to let Konoha just act like they were in charge here. Oh, of course, your imperial majesty. I ask for your forgiveness, and there will be no further incidents. Minato quickly gathered his own composure, as did most of the others, save for Sasuke, Kiba and Sakura, who kept glaring at him. If there won't be any slights like that, then you are free to state your business to us and our court. I may have missed the beginning, but I believe that you have come here to ask for something, Naruto noted out, as he put his sword on his right side, holding by the tip of the hilt. So, what message did Fire Daimyo instruct you to carry here? Our Lord Daimyo has sent us with a proposition to your Imperial Majesty. Kohara decided to speak in Minato's place, with Naruto and everyone else carefully listening. Our Daimyo wishes to establish strong diplomatic ties with your empire, so that both of our countries could prosper and grow stronger from one another. My empire has been growing strong and prosperous ever since it has been established 5 years ago, without any aid or help from your country. Naruto noted out to the elder, and so far its growth and prosperity and power has been quite successful, and I see no need to alter an already successful and proven growth pattern. Yes, your Imperial Majesty, that may be true, but I am sure you are aware of the inner strength that Hai no Kuni possesses. The will of fire, a legacy of the first Hokage and carried by all of Shinobi of Konoha and its people. Minato reminded to Naruto, who merely cocked his eyebrow up. This will of fire has been the source of power to Konoha in its direst of moments, and in its greatest victories. As once a shinobi yourself, your Imperial Majesty, you know the true strength of will of fire. Lord Hokage, the will of fire you speak of is a philosophical teaching, a spiritual guidance at its core, nothing more. Philosophy is good for mental and spiritual growth and is capable of uniting people, but here in the Empire, people believe not just in ideals, but in actions that make those ideals into a reality. Naruto stated with knowledge, with Minato stiffening at hearing his son say it like that. I will not debate on which philosophy or teaching is more worthy of following or not. That is a task for philosophers and scholars. Now, what is it that Fire Daimyo proposes exactly, aside from demonstrating our court your spiritual knowledge? And do please operate with physical and real objects, not spiritualistic ones. Our empire has its own ideological and mental values, values that we do not intend to change to any others, just because of your example. Semiramis noted out to them, if you wish to establish diplomatic ties with our empire, do so through actions, not high and mighty words. Daimyos of Odo, Iwa and Kumo, for an example, have proven themselves as valuable and trustworthy economic and trading partners through their actions. Hai no Kuni and Konoha would want to learn from their example. Semiramis contained a wish to laugh at the look of insult upon Konoha shinobi's faces, while ambassadors and guests from said countries smirked at them. Our daimyo wishes for an embassy to be established in your empire, as to have an official representation of Hai no Kuni's interests in your court. Elder Hamura spoke up now. He also proposes for an alliance to be made between your empire and Hai no Kuni, an economic and military in nature. In exchange of your fleet and armies supporting our daimyo, you will have access to Konoha's shinobi to hire as your guards, assassins and assistants in various situations. Along with that, we are willing to trade our knowledge of elemental natures, chakra and jutsu as well. There are also other propositions and some details that need to be fulfilled, but I am sure that a man of your status needs not to bother with the minor details. Counselor Hamura, in my experience, it is such minor details, as you have called them, that later cause most trouble and prove to be far more detrimental than the entire treaty is worth. Naruto sternly replied to her, with steel in his voice. My husband and I will want to hear it all now, everything that you want to offer to us, as well as details surrounding them, no matter how minor they are. Empress added up with a demand. Unless you have something to hide from us, you should have no trouble revealing it all to us. And along with that, I believe that you also have a documented version of the proposition of your daimyo. If you have it, please give it to High Lord Gabriel Windrunner. Gabriel understood what was needed of him, so he left his position and went to the officials of daimyo, picking up the treaty and already beginning to read it, as he went back. After a good several minutes of reading it, confusion on Gabriel's face has changed into mild irritation and then into a hidden anger, traces of which appeared upon his face. When he was done reading it all, he handed it over to Hanabi, surprising Naruto and Semiramis, before he spoke up, while Konoha awaited the response from the Empire's highest authority here, already expecting a success. Forgive me, your Imperial Majesties, but I cannot present to you the terms of Konoha's treaty, without using strong and inappropriate words, especially in presence of noble ladies, Her Imperial Majesty, and my wife. Gabriel explained himself, with Naruto and Semiramis understanding that Konoha's proposition was far more of a demand, instead of a proposition of friendship and trade, while Windrunner turned to face them. Delegates of Konoha, what exactly were you hoping to accomplish with those terms? Did you think that just because our empire is young it can be easily swayed by someone like you into doing your bidding for essentially nothing? By the tone, Gabriel was completely infuriated, and for a good reason. Lady Hanabi, what is it that has infuriated Hand of the Emperor so much? What is written there? Semiramis asked of the head of diplomatic affairs, growing impatient herself with Naruto as well. Lady Hanabi quickly went through the document, and much like her close friend, was growing angrier with Konoha's proposal by the second. Once she was done, she let out a sharp and long exhale, a sign of her own anger and frustration, before she spoke to the imperial couple. Your Imperial Majesties, Hai no Kuni's terms of proposal are as follow. Establishment of an embassy and constant diplomatic presence in Empire. Opening all of its ports to our merchant ships and lowering of taxation on our merchants and their goods. Ability to contract Konoha shinobi. Provision of knowledge on jutsu, chakra and elemental manipulations. An official military and economic alliance between our Empire and Hai no Kuni. Hanabi took a pause for a second, before continuing on. However, in exchange for these offerings, Konoha and Fire Daimyo demand abolishment of all and any connections to lands of Iwa, Kumo, and Oto, immediate closure of their embassies and banishment of their ambassadors and any and all members of their countries, seizure of humanitarian help for said lands and their complete redirection to Hai no Kuni to combat the effects of the Great Famine. 1/5 of our fleet is to be stationed in their territorial waters, for protection of their merchant and civilian fleet. 1/4 of our armed forces are to be deployed in elemental nations to guard its borders. Complete access to usage of our specialized forces, such as Shadow Guard, in Konoha's interests. Provision of our military and industrial technologies, as well as schematics and experts on building them. An immediate oath to assist Konoha and Hai no Kuni in case they go to war, be they the defendant or the aggressor. Hanabi could see how her husband understood what had infuriated her and Gabriel so much. These are the terms that Konoha and Hai no Kuni has given to us. Hanabi gave terms to her emperor and empress, with the court clearly hearing them all, and outrage broke out, as the court descended into fury and rage. Konoha's delegations suddenly found themselves as the objects of combined hatred and fury of the imperial court, as nobles of all races. Ambassadors from elemental nations and other lands were scoffing and scowling at them. Minato and Kushina saw clear hatred and fury of the court at them, and did not understand what was so outrageous that they have proposed to them. These were the very same terms that Konoha had given to each and every other nation that had joined them, and even though some of them did refuse them, they eventually did see the power of Will of Fire and joined in. But here, imperial nobility, ambassadors and all others, they simply scoffed at them all and spoke out in outrage and fury towards them. It seemed like Empire wasn't intimidated and impressed by power of Konoha, but seemed to completely scoff at it, and them as well. Naruto and Semiramis remained composed, but a single look at them revealed their own distress and inner anger. And all the while most of Konoha struggled to remain composed in the face of this outcry, Danzo already was making his move, as he subtly activated his Manjikyu Sharingan, and was ready to secure this empire for Konoha. After all, if this young fool wasn't going to serve willingly to Konoha's best interests, he shall be made to do so through a little bit of persuasion. After all, if not for Konoha, for whom this empire's resources and vast armies were for? These fools? No, only for Konoha and none others. Having listened and allowed the outrageous cries continue for long enough, Naruto raised his blade for a little bit, before he sent it down back with the tip colliding with the white floor of the throne room. The sound, an instant near-invisible wave of wind and power hushed the court, and throne room fell silent. They knew that now Emperor and Empress have made their decision and will announce it, and now was the time for them to remain silent and patient. Naruto looked down at his parents, elders, Konoha shinobi and officials of daimyo, anger and fury barely visible upon his face. He had expected Konoha to be at least politely humble and subtle, but this. He had heard less outrageous terms from Robert Baratheon and his wife, when he invaded Reach in Dorne. Naruto had faced many arrogant and ignorant rulers, counts, dukes and sovereigns, many of whom had demanded of him a lot of things. But to hear such things from Konoha and Hai no Kuni, at the first official diplomatic mission and meeting like that, it would seem they have completely lost all sense of fear and respect towards others. Well, time to remind these arrogant shinobi that there are those whom you must fear and respect. Lord Hokage, elders and ambassadors, I have but one question to ask of you. Who do you think you are? Naruto asked of them, his voice layer was steel, cold and unforgiving, but with core of anger present in it. Your Imperial Majesty, if you are confused, then weaken Jiraiya. Thinking that his former apprentice didn't understand the meaning of this offer, made a single biggest mistake. Confused? Naruto roared at them, with the court and throne room unconsciously shaking in fear for a moment at the power of their emperor. You take me for a fool, Jiraiya of Toads? Or do you think that I am the same naive, foolish, loud-mouthed student you had toyed with 10 years ago? Do not try to appease or deceive me. I have been fooled far too many times to fall for such lies again, and be thankful that I had not ordered for your incarceration for these words. Now answer the question, or I will have it pried out of your mouths by other means. The tone at which Naruto had said it made it crystal clear that he was deadly serious, while royal guards had put their hands upon their weapons, ready and waiting for the command. Your Imperial Majesty, our land is the strongest in elemental nations, with our shinobi and warriors being of greater quality and strength than all others. Minato took the word, speaking up with conviction. This treaty is the same one that we have granted to Suna, Kiri and many others, and they had accepted it, not to mention now are a part of our union. Your nation would greatly benefit from this alliance, and benefit from it? In what way? Lowered trading taxes and opening more ports in your lands, or through learning what chakra and elemental natures are. Do not take me for a fool, Hokage. Naruto warned him with strength. Do you think that learning what we already know from Uchiha's, Uzumaki and others is of any worth to us? Or that 6 new ports and lowered taxations will make up for the economic losses in severing the trade with 2 biggest importers of rich ores, metals and building materials on your continent? And do you think that we would ever commit a great portion of our fleets, armies and our specialized troops, just for your shinobi, who are 1,000 miles away from the closest port in my empire? Naruto roared at them in that last one, with even Semiramis flinching a little at this one, which was something rarely seen even by her own kin. Why, your Imperial Majesty, perhaps a more detailed and private explanation of our terms would see clarify some. Minato had tried to play his hand on this one, to get a chance to personally talk to Naruto and explain everything to him, to get him see his way, but it was far too late. In public or in private, our answer will be the one and the same, Minato Namikaze, Naruto said with power, as he and his wife rose up from their seats and walked closer to the court. This empire, this nation was founded in flames of war, where rivers of blood flew on hundreds of battlefields and countless lives were lost on daily basis, all in the name of few and their greed, arrogance and lust for power. They would betray the lives of their men and women, friends and loyal retainers in a matter of second, just to gain momentary profit and small measure of questionable valuables. I have taken a sacred vow before you all, that I would make those days perish and to have this empire standing as a beacon of justice, loyalty and righteousness, where loyalty is rewarded, and traitors are sought and punished. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who was still seething with hatred, while most of Konoha trembled. And now, Daimyo of High no Kuni has sent you, Konoha shinobi, here, in hopes that I would make the same choice as all those other kings, lords and sovereigns before me. He believes that I would be willing to give up long-forged partnerships and friendships with more honest and honorable rulers, and that I would send sons and daughters of this empire just to die for a foreign ruler and his ambitions. Well, Konoha, you may return to your liege lord and inform him that Second Numenor Empire will never agree to the terms he has presented, not today, in 5, 10 or 100 years. We will never ally ourselves with the man that rewards traitors, and punishes those who are loyal and righteous to the cause. And for this insult, in assuming that we would reject our partners for him, by imperial decree, I order the complete withdrawal of Phoenix Trading Company, and its assets from High no Kuni, and their so-called allies. Naruto turned to the president of the Phoenix Company, a high elf with short black hair and dressed in black and red, and ambassadors from Northern Alliance. Lord Hylan, any and all monetary and physical losses during the withdrawal will be compensated from royal treasury. You have my word on that. I need no further guarantees, your Imperial Majesty. Phoenix Trading Company shall withdraw our merchants, trading posts and all our assets within 3 weeks, as per your command. High Elf bowed before his Emperor and Empress. Ambassadors Lao Kei and Yakushi, I remember the offer of expanding trading relations between our respectable nations, as well as opening a permanent trading office and representation of Phoenix Trading Company. We are open to further negotiations on this matter, so contact with Lady Hanabi and Lord Hylan, so that we may discuss this matter in full details. Naruto saw how the ambassadors beamed with success and bowed before the Emperor and Empress. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? Jiraiya, having had enough, decided that it was enough time for the politeness, and decided to make it personal. You would so openly forsake your home in times of need, and ally yourself with them? Don't you know that they are allies and minions of Orochimaru, and you would openly help them like that? This is an outrage, you. Sir Arthur Dane, Sir Elrich Redsun, take this man, gag him and escort him out of here. Old Toad Sage clearly has forgotten his place and needs to be reminded of it. So please be kind as to introduce him to Lady Mae of Shadowsong and her watchers, as well as the cells. 2 days within those confines should teach this man and serve as an example to his companions for what will happen if they decide to insult my husband and our family without care. Semiramis commanded to the royal guards, with a tall man with 2 swords and full armor and a high elf, dressed in paladin armor and with a war hammer of dwarven work, turned around and bowed the Empress, before heading towards the man. Jiraiya had tried to resist the arrest, even trying to fight against the 2 royal guards, but they weren't chosen of the Emperor and Empress without a reason. A single spell of light from Ellerich, and Jiraiya found his knees failing him and falling onto the ground, as special shackles closed up on his wrists, and he was dragged out of the room, with Konoha's shinobi looking at this with an outrage, but also fear. As Jiraiya was out of the room and the royal guards quickly rejoined them, Naruto spoke up again. Another outrageous act upon your part, delegates, and fate of your companion will be a mercy compared to the next punishment. Naruto promised them. You and your guards are restricted to the port quarter, and you will be under constant monitoring of watchers and city guards. Should you try and leave, you will be escorted back. Try a second time and you will be escorted into the gallows. Force your way, and you will leave the port quarter in a coffin. You will leave Numenor City in 4 days, with the next ship heading for Hai no Kuni. Now be gone, your audience is over. Naruto commanded to them. I believe you should reconsider this rash decision, your Imperial Majesty. Danzo spoke in his usual manner, getting in eye contact with Naruto, and using his Kodo Amatsukami on him in that same instant. After all, you do care for the betterment of Konoha, Naruto Uzumaki, do you not? Danzo let out a small satisfied smile, knowing that this empire was as good as his now, with Naruto blinking a couple of times, as if something was in his eyes. Unfortunately for Danzo, he has greatly underestimated empire and its emperor, along with people that has surrounded himself with. While in Eastern continent, only select few could feel how a person casts a jutsu or genjutsu. In the West, magi, shinobi, watchers and many others have developed several supplementary techniques that allowed to sense out the casting of a spell, jutsu or a visual genjutsu of the highest caliber. What is on the East a hidden genjutsu technique, was like a thundering monastery bell for all of royal guards, noble lords and ladies, hidden watchers and shadow guards, along with emperor and empress, and their bodyguards. Royal guards immediately drew out their weapons, as the city guards in the throne room also took up the positions for a battle, shielding the court. Niji and Tenten instantly were at Empress and Emperor's sides, with Gabriel and Verisa already drawing out their weapons. Semiramis instantly understood what befell her husband and dispelled the genjutsu the second she sensed it, much to Danzo's shock, while all of Konoha was oblivious and didn't understand what was going on. Naruto, the second he felt the genjutsu lifted off him, looked in concerned eyes of Hanabi and Semiramis, nodding to his Empress, signifying that he was well now. The next second, Naruto's furious voice thundered through the halls of palace. You insolent mongrels! You dare not only to insult me and my entire empire with this treaty, but you have the gall to use a genjutsu upon me to bend me to your will? Watchers, seize all of Konoha's delegates, have them shackled and thrown into the Twilight cells. The next instant the entire delegation of Konoha was surrounded by high and night elves, dressed in black armor, covering their body and faces, with black cloaks coming to the floor from their shoulder plates, already proceeding to shackle and seize shinobi of Konoha and its ambassadors, and have this Warhawk and Sasuke Uchiha interrogated and searched with extreme prejudice. Spare no expense or method to get to the truth of this matter. Inform Lady Maeve and Anko Midarashi that they have full carte blanche on this. Danzo was struggling with the 2 night elves when they restrained him, but once shackles were placed on him and all of chakra was blocked off him, his bandages were ripped out from his covered eye and his arm, along with restraints on it, revealing the full arm of Sharingans, with face of Hashirama on the shoulder of his artificial arm, and a Sharingan in his right eye socket. Minato and the rest of Konoha looked at Danzo with utter shock and bewilderment, while Sasuke was seething with anger and rage and was trying to get out of the hold of watchers and killed Danzo. Court looked at Danzo with utter disgust, and did not even hide it, with sneers, snarls and clear fury upon him and the rest of Konoha. Naruto and Semiramis merely looked at them with fury and contempt, as she motioned to take them away, with Danzo shouting out in outrage that all he did was for Konoha, which sounded as cries of a defeated beast. Unfortunately for everyone, the moment the shackles have closed up on Sakura's wrists, the spell put on her by Hanabi had been dispelled by the effects of the shackles, and the moment that spell was lifted, Sakura shouted out loud, Naruto, you ungrateful bastard! You should have long been dead, and this place belongs to Sasuke-kun by his right of an elite, and you'll be kissing my feet before I bash your skull into nothing. This Empress, Hanabi, all of those bitches will service him. Only a shame that ugly fat bitch Hinata was dumb enough to die because of a worthless demon like you, and Sakura shouted out, as she was being dragged out of the throne room, until, wait! Thundering voice of Naruto stopped the watchers and everyone in their track. Bring her here, Naruto commanded slowly and with power, with the watchers knowing who he wanted to see, and they dragged Sakura right before his feet, past the royal guards and put her on her knees before him, as Naruto's face and eyes, filled with utter fury, anger and rage, locked on the now shaking Pinkette. None dare to insult the imperial family, threaten them, and most importantly, no one dares to insult the memory of my beloved and get away from it without being punished, Naruto said with cold, barely contained fury, as he looked in the eyes of the watchers and gave a command. Cut her tongue out of her mouth and cauterize the wound without an anesthetic. Make her watch the interrogation of her beloved Sasuke Uchiha, and after that, make sure that neither her foul mouth, nor her hands are capable of spewing dirt upon others. Sakura paled as she heard her sentence, with one of the watchers promptly gauging her and getting her out of the place, with the rest of the lot. All of court and throne room fell silent for a moment, and none dared to speak against the emperor and his order. They knew that it was cruel, unethical even, but he was fully in his right, and it was not just a sentence for a foul-mouthed woman, no. This was a message, clear as crystal diamond and more powerful than simple words. Naruto was a ruler, a powerful emperor, and one that really did good for his people, having once made Eriador great again, greater than ever before. However, while his heart is kind and intentions are benevolent towards his friends and subjects, to those that seek to undermine his people, exploit his kindness and smirch his and numerous name with dirt, he'll be vengeful and merciless. And to those that dare to insult the memory of his beloved wife, a woman revered by people as nothing short of a saint, someone who had given to the unification of this land more than anyone, including her life. Even to this day, after over 5 years now, Naruto still could not forget his beloved Hinata, nor forgive himself for not being there with her. He will forever feel that way, until the day that he reunited with her in the next life or the afterlife. But until that day comes, no one will smirch his wife's name with dirt, nor will anyone dare to use his empire in their own interests. He will not send men and women to die in the others' wars, not for Westerosi lords, nor will he do so for his former home, especially not his former home, Imperial Palace's dungeons. Twilight Cells section. Several hours later, the Twilight Cells were exactly what they sounded like, embodying the endless void of darkness, so thick and strong, that not even drops of water could get through. Cells made of the black rock, with ebonite-like metal being the material of the cells. Some of the more daring shinobi tried to break out of the cell through either force, or with the lockpicks, but to no avail or success, since the Twilight Cells are designed not just to house prisoners, but to prevent their escape by the means of engineering and magic combined, magic that only watchers patrolling the area knew here. And nothing escaped the gazes of those men and women, for they were trained to even see with their eyes closed. It has been a couple of hours, and so far, the watchers already took Sasuke, Danzo, Might Guy, Sakura, Koharu and Hamura, with Might Guy, Koharu and Hamura returned, but returned in a state that left the prisoners more than a little scared. They seemed hollow, utterly empty, with not as much of a physical damage done as they expected, but it was clear that whatever methods watchers employed, it was more than enough to break even Might Guy, for his form shook with every sudden wisp of rare wind, or crack of a torch. His eyes were filled with dread and utter fear, but his lips were shut, yet it was clear he was broken, and not just once. The Namake's family was put in a single cell, not much to their surprise, or maybe it was one grace that Naruto would show to them. The cell was clearly made for several prisoners, so there was enough space for them all, but there was no way for them to speak with the other shinobi of Konoha. Letting out a sigh, Kushina spoke up, starting the long-awaited talk. Naruto, not like this I had thought our reunion would come, if it ever were to be. I had hoped, believed like Tsunade that he was still alive, but like this Minato, what have we done to him? Kushina shook her head, putting it in her hands, weeping. My son, our baby boy, how could we even think about doing such a thing and be okay with it? Kushina cried out at her husband, who didn't even flinch a little. You know as well as I do, Kushina, that this was the best thing for us all to do. It was either that, or we would risk all of our children being targeted by not just Madara, but also by Kumo and IWA, and not to mention the influence of Kyuubi over them. Minato reminded to his wife and kids what needed to be done, and he still stood by his decision. What do you think would have been better, having all of our children suffering for our mistake, or be able to raise 2 of them to be what they were destined to be, in happiness and safety, while the other one were to drive away from us and them all the threats? You and I made that decision, and there is no reversing it now. The other one? Minato, that damn bloody decision that you think I made, was made by you, Jiraiya and that cursed Hiruzen Sarutobi, not me. I was in a damned coma after the childbirth and extraction of Kyuubi, not mention battling Madara. Have you forgotten how you told me that my Naruto had died during the attack, that he took the soul of the Kyuubi with him? Kushina shouted in outrage at her husband. You knew, that damned frog and that fucking Hokage, all of you knew, that I would never have allowed you to abandon my son, whom I didn't even hold in my hands. You fucking lied to me. And only 14 fucking years later did I find out the truth about my Sochi. You stole away from me my child, our child. And all for fucking what? To protect our children from Madara, IWA and all others? You are a fucking yellow flash of Konoha, for crying out loud, the man that had killed thousands of shinobi in mere hours. And Konoha is filled with powerful shinobi, all of whom together had stopped the Kyuubi. No, you didn't sacrifice our son just to protect Menma and Narumi. No, I know why you did it, Minato. You know nothing, Kushina. I did it for the betterment of us and Konoha. Minato defended himself before his wife. Oh, for fucking hell, shut up about your betterment of Konoha for a fucking minute. You threw away our son, because you didn't see our son in Naruto anymore. Kushina accused him, with Minato shutting up at this one. You think I never saw that look on your face, when Kyuubi was raging inside of me, that look of fear, mixed with hatred? Oh, I remember it very well, Minato, so well, that just before I fell into coma, the last thing I saw was the very same look of yours, casted right at our baby. And it was far more intense and avid. You didn't see Naruto there, you saw Kyuubi instead of him, that's why you threw him away, didn't you? Minato didn't say a thing, as he continued thinking over this situation and trying to find a way out, as well as not daring to face his wife and the truth. And while their parents were in debates of their own, Narumi and Menma were exchanging words of their own. Damn that Naruto! Who the hell does he think he is? Throwing us like some common criminals into these cells. He should have been glad to finally see his real family, like a failure he is, and sign that damn treaty for all our sakes. Doesn't he understand that Konoha is the only true empire that deserves to rule? Menma asked no one in particular, with Narumi replying, well, be I on his place, I wouldn't think twice about executing Danzo, and that son of a bitch Sasuke with that whore. Narumi grumbled with anger, as a small chuckle escaped her lips. I so bloody hope that he and that whore suffer. Serves that bastard right. Narumi grumbled lowly. Aren't you supposed to be a loyal and loving wife to Sasuke, like you and Sakura usually do? Menma was surprised when he heard his sister speak like that. What, is being Mrs. Uchiha isn't as good as you had hoped? Is he what, not giving you enough attention and you resort to vibrators? Or you and Sakura? Menma was about to continue, but a quick slam in the jaw silenced him for good, with Narumi looking at him with hatred. You better shut up, little brother, before I do those tormentors' job on you for them. Narumi hissed at him, with blazing hatred in her eyes. You think that being married is all sunshine and happiness? For you, maybe, but for me I cursed the very fucking days I landed my eyes on him, and when Dad announced our marriage and on our wedding night, and every bloody night after that. Remember when Ino told me that you had hit her and I nearly killed for that? Menma nodded to this one. You were lucky it was an accident, because if you hit her on purpose, and more than once. Wait, you mean Sasuke is beating you? Like, on the regular and during, especially during it. That is the only way he can do it, often with that curse mark turned on, and Sakura, that whore, revels in it, and even helps him. And it's not just beating. Oh no, that bastard has done a lot to me, and when I was finally pregnant with our child, not even that had stopped him. Menma and Kushina, who had also finally took time off of shouting at her husband, paled at the revelation, with Narumi turning to her parents. You think it's 'cause I'm clumsy, that I'm always in bruises and cuts? Or is that I lost my son on my 6th month because of miscarriage 5 years ago? Oh no, it was that fucking son of a bitch, your son-in-law, that did it all, father. And what did you tell me, when I told you about it? You told me to simply endure and make Sasuke happy. You fucking knew what he did to me, and you didn't fucking bother even to straighten him up. You, my own fucking father, you just took that bastard's word for truth and left me to his mercy. Narumi's eyes were already watered, as she broke down, with her mother already at her side and calming her, before she casted a powerful glare at Minato. Minato first, Naruto, then Narumi. When we get out of her, if those watchers don't kill that bastard and you, I will fucking do it. You sold our own daughter to a maniac, also that you could secure Uchiha's for Konoha? But what about our daughter, the one you so desperately had tried to protect? Kushina snarled at him, with Minato remaining impassive. Sasuke had promised to me to stop his attitude, and he has, as far as I know. And our daughter had always had a wild imagination, which still hasn't stopped. Minato defended himself, before Narumi shouted at him. That fucking bastard had punched me in the gut, when I was fucking pregnant with my son, and all because he was fucking frustrated with how council doesn't respect his authority. Narumi shouted at him. I was 6 months through already. Do you even fucking care if I live or not, as long as that fucker is loyal to Konoha or not? Wow, I always knew that you were rotten inside. But to this extent. A new voice came in, with all the participants turning their heads to see none other than Anko Mitarashi, dressed in an outfit of a warden herself, with all the armor and cloak, but without a helmet, with her hair now longer and made into a long ponytail, looking at them all, in specific at Narumi. Don't worry, girl. That sick fucker and his personal cheering whore are really suffering, right? So much so that they wish they could just die. You that Tokubetsu Jonin, partner of Ibiki Marino and Orochimaru's former apprentice, Mitarashi Anko. Minato recognized her, with Anko smirking at Hokage. Did my son also buy you for his own, like he did with Hyuga and some others, when you disappeared? Bought me? I was fucking happy to get out of that hellhole, as were all the others, after you returned. Anko countered. His Imperial Majesty had offered me a pretty title, lands and enough money for life, but I refused, and after I heard of Watchers and what they do, I just couldn't resist joining in. I mean, who wouldn't? High payment, premium equipment, top-of-the-class training, insurance that covers everything, from death, a tooth infection to sudden destruction of your house by a goblin rocket, and on top it all off, a chance to learn from the Night Elf Watchers the true art of torturing. Did you know that them lot had been doing what I loved to do for 10,000 years straight? Wicked, but fuck if I wasn't on that train the moment I saw what my now chief does on daily basis. Needless to say, I proved to be one damn enthusiastic and successful Watcher interrogator. Anko, I know that things weren't all well for you in Konoha, but if you just managed to get my son a message from me, Minato wanted to sway Anko on his side, but it proven to be useless. Sorry there, Lord Sakadikage, but not only is my payment here way higher than in Konoha, but here, IV got lots of real friends and a good life, and His Imperial Majesty did everything to get that curse mark off me and helped with rehabilitation. He is like a little brother, so caring and reliable. Anko smiled kindly, before her smile turned into a wicked one. Alright ladies, time to grab on the new meat. Get me mother-daughter duo out of here. the red-eyed ravenet with those nice legs and great rack, bearded asshole with a smoke in his mouth, pine-ass lazy bun and that perverted virgin with a boner for frogs. Watchers went to the cells, opening them up and dragging the needed people out of them. And careful with that frog boner, he is a legit super pervert, and will do anything to get a panty shot. Not to mention his sadomasochistic tendencies, considering how much women in Konoha beat his ass in hot springs and he still came back, several times a day at times. Then it is probably a good thing Mistress Maeve orders us to wear all this armor and cloak, Mistress Anko. Her aide replied to it, with Anko nodding to this, putting back her helmet. Yeah, it certainly is. Plus it's damn comfy in here as well. Good thing she cares for her subordinates wearing a comfortable uniform. Alright ladies, bring the abused girl a nice rack into 12th cabinet, and the rest in 13th cabinet. Anko ordered out, as they went ahead towards the places, with Kushina tugging Anko and stopping her. Please, Anko, I beg you, don't hurt my daughter. I'll take whatever punishment she was ordered to. Just Anko simply pushed Kushina's hand away and motioned them to move, while she went to the 12th cabinet with Narumi and Kurenai, closing behind her. And nobody even was able to see a dim light, coming from the smallest space between the door and floor. Imperial Gardens. Meanwhile, Gardens of Hinata. This was to be Naruto's present to his first love on their 5th anniversary together, something that Hinata had always wanted to have in their palace. A place, filled with life, flowers and untainted beauty, where she and Naruto could find solitude, to spend time together just for themselves, away from the prying eyes and important matters. A place, where time and matters would not touch them, where Hinata would bring their daughter to play with, their little Himawari. If only Hinata had not answered the call of House of Latrua, she and Himawari would enjoy this place, the gift that Naruto had been preparing for his wife and daughter. But in the end, Hinata never saw this small marvel, this small private world that Naruto had prepared for her. Instead, Naruto and Semiramis with her dragons have made a new garden elsewhere, a garden of ashes and fire, as some call it, right where his beloved had lost her life, and their daughter had lost her mother. Nowadays, Naruto would come in this place in need of finding privacy and to be with his own thoughts, to think of things and remember what had happened. Along with that, he would let the hardened and strong facade of the Emperor fall for a little bit and reveal a person, scarred and changed by wars, campaigns, still mourning the loss of his beloved, and happily spending every moment with his children here, along with his wives in a moment of peace. Now was not such moment, for Naruto and Semiramis were waiting for their guests to arrive. And so they did, as a small portal opened up, and from it walked out Kurenai, Narumi and Anko. Naruto let outside a small smile, as he spoke up. Sorry for the little delay and that little spectacle, but it is hardly the time for them to know of our little bond. Naruto smiled to them, with Narumi and Kurenai smiling back to him. Plus Konoha really did piss me off with all this. I'll say, I thought that you were going to kill Minato right there in the spot. Narumi commented with a chuckle. And thanks for getting me out of the cell for a bit. It was starting to get really tense in there. Anytime, little sister. Naruto said with care and love to his dear little sister, before bringing her in the embrace, warm and caring. I miss you, Narumi. I miss you too, big brother. Narumi allowed her own facade to fall down, and her true nature came out, as she answered to her brother's embrace with her own, with tears of happiness falling down having reunited with her beloved sibling. For most, seeing an emperor hugging a daughter of 4th Hokage and his wife, a container for Kyuubi and a wife to his former rival from the times now ignored and forgotten by many, would have been something of a shock. But to Narumi Namikaze, this was a meeting she was longing for a long time, as it has been over a year since she talked with Naruto in person, and this waiting was hard for her. Especially considering in the fact that Narumi was not like her family and Konoha in a simple, yet completely defying aspect of her character. Narumi, since her childhood, was always one of those children with the curiosity and the need to ask the age-old question, what is right and what was wrong. Growing up in a seemingly loving and caring environment, she and her brother were shaped up by their father to make both of them able to control Kyuubi's power, as well as being loyal and loving towards their homeland, Konoha. Control over Kyuubi, loyalty to family and Konoha, expanding over the natural talents and gifts that they received, those were the main cornerstones in their upbringing. And while Menma took to it all like a fish to the water, Narumi was always more curious and interested in details, so she questioned all that her mind could grasp. Initially, it was seen as a positive thing by her father and mother, a child eager to learn more from her parents. And Minato with Kushina did try to answer it all, but before long, Narumi began to ask questions about first the Kyuubi, why was it imprisoned and why it was evil, which led Minato to talking about her and Kyuubi's importance to Konoha and world peace. At first Narumi accepted this and calmed down, but not long after, she became an unwanted witness to a fight between her mother and father, with the subject being her believed to be dead brother, Naruto. It was then when Narumi learned that she had another brother, and that her parents had left in Konoha, alone, without anyone, and that he was the shield that protected Narumi and Menma, a diversion to prevent all others from hurting them. For Narumi, brought up in the environment of love and care for family, this was a shock, an absolute crush of her beliefs and idealism. She and Menma were told that Naruto was gone the moment he was born, taking with him the soul of Kyuubi and leaving them the power to wield, but now Narumi knew the truth. Parents didn't see her, as she had hid herself away, and soon after that, Namikaze's family returned to Konoha, where they were hailed as heroes and saviors. Menma was practically drowning in all this adoration, but Narumi didn't, for all her thoughts were with Naruto and she wanted to meet with him, to talk to him and connect with him. But it was all too late, as he was banished, like a discarded kunai, having served his purpose and now useless, with her mother and father accepting it as something normal, and Menma scoffing at Naruto's memory. But to Narumi, this was another crush of ideals and the reveal of the duplicity and hypocrisy of her family and Konoha. She hid all her growing hatred in a way and made sure to not show it outright, but she no longer saw her family with the bright colors as before. Her father was a hypocrite, determined to see Konoha on top with Narumi and Menma serving that purpose, ignoring the fact of his betrayal of his own blood. Her mother, who had oh so fervently and ferociously defended Naruto and spoke about the injustice done to her and him, did nothing to change it all and still remained with Minato, being a loyal and faithful wife to him and still being on his side. And Konoha Narumi didn't see the ideal place to live in, but a cesspool of betrayal, arrogance and hypocrisy, among which few of those that were truly loyal to true will of fire remained and from whom she learned of what kind of person her brother was. Kind, loyal, brave, headstrong and with a heart so great that not even the mistreatment of this village could break him, ready to do everything for his village and friends. It wasn't long until Narumi grew to first respect, and then admire her brother. Over years, Narumi only grew in hatred and disgust with Konoha, hiding it away, and she had sought out to get close to her brother's former teammates, hoping that they were still loyal to him as he was to them. Narumi couldn't have been more wrong and she now cursed them and herself for falling in love with Sasuke, being his wife and enduring 8 years of beatings, mistreatment, rape, and even loss of a child when Minato had dismissed it all and told Narumi to simply keep on the appearances. That was when Narumi understood that to her father, she wasn't as much of a daughter as she was a product for his plans, with Menma not seeing it. And when she had tried to tell her mother the truth of what had happened, Kushina simply said to her child that she was overreacting and that it was normal for Narumi to be feverish, and that Sasuke loved and cared about her. Narumi simply couldn't believe that her mother, after all that had happened to her, and how her husband had deceived her, would go out of her way to keep up the appearance of all being well, when she could clearly see it was not like that. Her husband lied to her. Menma was an arrogant and spoiled brat, and Narumi was being abused, raped, and nearly killed on several occasions by her own husband. And Kushina, blind and deaf to the pleas of her daughter, kept the appearances, speaking out of the injustices for Naruto, yet siding ultimately with Minato, just to keep their family together. She had failed to realize that there was no family to be saved and salvaged, and Narumi had only hoped that she could have gotten away from this hellhole with Naruto when he did. And suddenly, 3 years ago, just a month after her miscarriage, Kurenai Yuhi had approached her and told Narumi that there were still some people that saw the injustice and corruption towards Naruto and how rotten fourth Hokage was. And even if they were hidden away, they were there, with Kurenai being one of them, and they had someone very powerful who supported them from shadows. And that someone, as soon Narumi found out, was the Emperor of Second Numenor Empire, Naruto, her own dear brother, whom she wished to meet for years, and now did, thanks to his spies and magi, who opened the portal from Konoha to Numenor. Their first meeting was at first awkward and strange, but as they spoke, Narumi and Naruto grew closer as true brother and sister, with Narumi finding comfort and someone who supported her truly. He had confessed to her that for years his spies and agents watched the situation in Konoha and also kept an eye out for her, and that he knew well of her and what had happened to her. Naruto had offered her and some others a way out of Konoha and into his empire, where they could build their lives and live in peace, away from the lies and hypocrisy of Konoha and dangers of shinobi life. The offer was so tempting for Narumi and Kurenai, but they refused, still holding on to some hope for Konoha, loyal to a fault to it, but also because, with their position so close to power, they decided to inform Naruto of the plans of Konoha. They knew that as an emperor, he watched at Konoha with a careful and threatened even eye, and he wanted to make sure that Konoha would not become a threat to Numenor Empire. Narumi and Kurenai understood it well and respected it, and so they stayed, becoming his ears and eyes in Konoha for 3 years, still in contact and loyal to Naruto, but growing more and more disillusioned and hopeless for Konoha as years had gone by. Especially hard they were for Narumi, with Sasuke's raping and beatings growing more and more violent, and even Narumi had grown to endure it. She soon sought to break away from this circle of hatred, vile and hypocrisy, with Kurenai agreeing with her, as her life with Asuma didn't prove to be good for her at all, with her own husband being a duplicitous person on several layers, and only her daughter Mirai and an iron will practically keeping her from becoming the same kind of miserable person as Kushina. But now, both young women were at an end of their endurance, and hoped to get out of their personal hell. And they truly held faith that Naruto would help them. As Naruto and Narumi separated, he nodded to Kurenai with a smile, as he spoke up to them. Hope the Watchers weren't too eager in their work. Maev is a very much capable leader of them, but even I sometimes find her dedication to justice and work to be obsessive. At times. Naruto let out a sigh, as he offered his sister and his friend seats on the benches, which they took, with him and Semiramis sitting down together on the other one. So, Narumi, Kurenai, what was it that you wished to discuss with me in person? Your message said that it was urgent, and from what my independent sources from Konoha told us, There doesn't appear to be any indication of threat from Konoha and Hai no Kuni to Empire and its interests, so this must be something personal. Semiramis noted out, with Narumi and Kurenai looking at Semiramis with surprise, hearing of this for the first time. You have your own spies in Konoha? Narumi asked of her curious, with Semiramis simply nodding at this one. I thought that Naruto only had those of Shadow Guard working there, but he mentioned nothing of your spies there, sister. Narumi, Kurenai, I hope that you do not take any offense to this revelation. The truth of the matter is that Black Dragonflight has its spies all over the world, including the elemental nations, and they were there for ages, long before the man you called God of Shinobi had founded Konoha. Naruto only learned of it after we married, but he kept quiet for me. Semiramis explained to the women. Other dragonflights may be reactionary in nature, but the blacks prefer to prevent catastrophes from happening when there is only seed of it taking root. I learned that lesson well, when my father's madness nearly cost me and my brothers and sisters their sanity and lives. Please do not think that I do not trust humans and other races, I do, and Naruto is most certainly one of a kind husband, but younger races, as I've learned, have a tendency to self-destruction, which I find to be disturbing. When you think about it, we do have it in us. Narumi didn't argue with a far superior in wisdom and experience creature. Anyway, what we wanted to talk about, Naruto, that offer, the one you made to me and Kurenai 3 years ago, does it still stand? Naruto and Semiramis exchanged the looks between each other, before Naruto spoke up, voice as strong and determined as ever. It does for both of you. Both of the women sighed in relief, with Naruto continuing. I know that you hate to hear this, but I did warn you that you wouldn't be able to do it for long. Especially considering what Asuma and Sasuke really were. Can't blame your sister for trying to repay to you for not being there for you when you needed it most. Narumi argued in her favor, with Naruto shaking his head at this one. She is right, Naruto. Both she and I didn't do anything to help you when we knew we could, and Kurenai had tried to support Narumi, but Naruto stopped them in their tracks. Neither of you hold no debt, or any blame for what had happened to me. I know full well who are to blame for what had transpired with me and whom not to, and I do not hold any ill against those that didn't stand up to them. Naruto simply stated to them with full seriousness. And I won't hear any more of your guilt and reasoning. I am getting you out of Konoha for good, and since you now want it, that just makes it a bit easier to do, especially with a blunder that Konoha had just made in here. I know for a fact that it wasn't father's idea to use that genjutsu on you. All he and others had wanted was to get on your and others' good side and make you sway the emperor on Konoha's side. Narumi informed Naruto and Semiramis. It could have been Sasuke, sure, but after what I and others saw with Danzo, that genjutsu was Danzo's handwork. Kodo Amatsukami of Shursui Uchiha. Suddenly, from the trees appeared a royal guard, wearing a lighter variant of their armor, with a white katana at his side, with his face being closed by helmet, which muffed his voice a bit. Over 17 years ago, Danzo had orchestrated the destruction of Clan Uchiha, having manipulated Third Hokage and Council into isolating them and provoking them into a rebellion. All of that was so that he could gain the Sharingan and Manjiki Sharingan, one of which he placed in his right eye socket. His Imperial Majesty was well informed of this for a long time, and I have warned him of the possibility of Danzo using Kodo Amatsukami on him, to which my dear wife and Empress, along with all of my Imperial Royal Guards, were most ready. Naruto noted out to them all. Still, I did expect that the moment Minato and others hear about me and my friends being here, odds would be in favor of them manipulating me to their favor. Wouldn't be the first time someone had tried that card on me, and I suspect it won't be the last anyway. Anko, what measures have been taken with Danzo? Lady Maev had ordered a complete suppression upon his chakra, surgical removal of that arm and the Sharingan in his eye. After that, he was subjected to our usual program of interrogation and questioning, the usual stuff. Anko replied simply to her emperor. From what the interrogators found out, that arm was transplanted to him with the help of Orochimaru, in order for Danzo to control some strange visual jutsu of Sharingan, which could grant him an immortality of sorts. Izanagi, a genjutsu casted upon oneself at the cost of the casting eye. It rewrites the laws of reality for a limited time, allowing for a person to live after being killed. The guard informed Naruto and Semiramis, as well as others. It is a forbidden among Uchiha's jutsu, among both the eastern and western clans. There are even special punishments for usage of this jutsu, as it is capable of easily corrupting with the illusions of invincibility its users. However, what Danzo has done, there is only one punishment for his crimes and what he had attempted today, and that is death. Semiramis said with strength and no compromises in her voice, turning to Anko. Is Danzo being interrogated still? Yup, by Lady Maev herself in attendance, and it seems like old Sneaky Snake has a lot of secrets to reveal to us, and he isn't through yet. He did try to use some suicidal fuinjutsu to take himself and half the palace with him when we first brought him to question, but good thing that Keira had allowed a couple of her people in the Watchers, so the crisis was averted. Anko replied. Should I go back and tell her that he is to be disposed of immediately? No, squeeze out of his mind and body every ounce of information that you can, and after that, throw him into an isolated cell. He will be executed, publicly and in front of Konoha's delegation a day after tomorrow. As for the delegates, you do your duty, Anko, Naruto said to her, with Anko nodding to him. Now, as for getting you two out of Konoha, with the situation as it is, you two can ask for a political protection and safe haven from Konoha, the basis being the mistreatment and violence being used against the two of you, along with the proof of it being provided by you and the interrogation. With those at hand, Konoha and Hai no Kuni won't be able to pressure me or Numenor Empire into giving you back, and with what Danzo pulled out here, they should consider themselves lucky with getting out of this hellhole so easily. Kurina, I remember that you now have a daughter, and she is also welcomed in here, my mages, and will take care of the getting her into the Empire. Naruto, there is something I would like to ask you to do. Narumi spoke up to her brother, with Naruto nodding to her. Please, extend this offer to our mother as well. Naruto widened his eyes at this one, but said nothing, as he rose up and slowly paced a little, not turning his head to face his sister and others. Kushina Namikaze, she was a very touchy subject for both of the siblings to talk about, with both being biased towards her in their own way. Naruto, much like with Minato, did not believe that she really even cared about his existence, while Narumi had always tried to prove to him that he was wrong in that belief. True, Naruto's views had changed somewhat about Kushina towards better, but he wasn't very much longing for a reunion with her, nor was he impressed with how she had handled the situation with him, and what had happened to Narumi. When Naruto had found out about what happened to Narumi from his agents, it was one of the few moments when he had snapped from his simple observation of Konoha and made a move to teach Sasuke a lesson. The next time Sasuke had left the village for a month-long mission, a fully armed company of shadow guards, led by now-present royal guard, had waited for him and captured him. How easy it was to make up a simple A-rank solo mission, to lure Sasuke Uchiha out of Konoha's reach and make him pay. Naruto was not present, but he made sure that his orders were carried out with a complete precision, with Sasuke being left without ability to ever conceive another child, weakened to the point being at the level of a simple chunin, and the curse mark now acting more like a slowly growing cancer, only well hidden away and spreading through his body, until Sasuke's all body wasn't infected by it, and then destroyed. It wouldn't be long now, miracles of magic and secrets learned from Orochimaru assure it. None knew what had happened with Sasuke, but when he returned, it was clear that he was no longer the mighty Uchiha elite that he was once, though none had dared to speak otherwise. And no one knew that Sasuke Uchiha was already a walking dead man, aside from Naruto. Naruto stopped pacing around and looked at the small patch of flowers in front of him, until he spoke up. You and I have discussed this more than once, Narumi, and you know my opinion about this subject. Naruto said in a cold and somewhat distant voice. She had said many things in my defense, but while her mouth said one thing, her actions spoke otherwise. She knew that I was alive for 2 years before I was banished, and she could have come to me back then, but did not. She could have left Minato and live a life of her own after all that he has done, but didn't. She heard all the rumors and stories about your mistreatment by Sasuke, especially from you, and what she did. Naruto said with strength and fire in his eyes. Narumi, I can understand your desire to help your mother, but after all that had happened, do you really think that she deserves this mercy? Naruto, I know how much you despise and even hate, I can understand that too. But you also need to understand that for her, our family is all that she has left. Narumi argued with him. She had lost her own clan, most of her friends and much more. Our father was there for her and with her for decades, and she had raised me and Minma, all in hopes of having something that she had lost family, and to keep that family alive, she would go to any lengths. The family that she so wishes to have and protect has long fallen apart, and she knows it. Naruto argued back to his sister. Minma, arrogant brat that abuses his position of a hero, with Ino and that second wife of his indulging him. Minato, with his world conquest plans as well as prophesies of the toads, believing he is to be a messiah for all, who ignores all morals and laws of men for his own ambitions. And then there is you, Narumi. She isn't concerned with saving and protecting her family, as she is obsessed with preserving this fickle illusion of perfection she had built in her mind, that all is well and won't break it. And even though she had heard what you said back in the cell, do you really think that she will do anything to protect you? Naruto asked of his sister, surprising her. All of our cameras are outfitted with listening and observing spells, making sure to prevent escapes from being plotted. Semiramis answered on the silent question for her husband, before turning to face her husband herself. Naruto, my love, I know and understand your resentment towards your mother, and I had faced the same, as you know. And while my mother had refused to listen to reason, her madness was assured by my father and his powers. I think that your mother may yet be redeemed. She was honest and sincere in her desire to be with you and in protecting you, and while her actions may speak otherwise, deep down she must understand that her current life can't very well continue for long. I do not know why she still keeps on the appearances, but I do know that there are those people, that in acts of desperation and to preserve even a ghostly appearance of their well-being, they will go so far as to ignore even the obvious. They are so desperate, that are unable to see that this illusion has become their own torment, and will not see the ways out of that twisted circle, unless someone shows it to them directly. You know that, do you not, my love? Naruto, I do not ask you to forgive and accept her, but for the sake of your sister and for me, please. Semiramis knew that her husband may have his moments of rashness and fury, but even he can be swayed when need be, and she knew how to do so. Naruto looked at his wife for a few long moments, before turning away from them for a bit and thinking to himself about it all. As much as he maybe despised Kushina, he could not ignore the reasoning of his sister and wife. In desperation, people will wear whatever mask to hide away their scars and to protect themselves from the harsh and cruel reality. He himself has done so for years in Konoha, and Kushina appeared to be the same way, only even worse in her case, considering that Minato was possibly the only close person ever to her, with her family also being all that she had for herself. Even though she had suffered so much cruelty, deceit and more, Naruto wouldn't pass it his father to influence her through their connection, as well as her own desperation for making things right for her family, or the majority of it. After all, sacrificing him did secure Narumi and Menma, from a practical point of view. Still, Kushina's desire to ignore all the wrong in front of her and dismiss it was troubling, but was he not the same way? He was, but what she did with Narumi, it was something that he could not ever ignore nor forgive, for hurting his sister like that, by letting her delusions take over her mind like that. He won't forgive her so easily, nor will he ever forget, but maybe. Letting out a sigh, Naruto turned back them and spoke up. Enko, arrange for Narumi and Kushina a time alone in one of the cabinets in dungeons. Enko nodded to him, with Naruto turning to his sister. Break the news to her. Tell her that if she really wants to, she can stay here, in Numenor. However, should she use her position to help out Hino Kuni or Konoha in any way, I will not be merciful towards her, not after all that had happened. Explain it to her, sister, because I don't think that I am yet ready to speak with her, without hurting her. Narumi smiled to Naruto and nodded to him. Itachi, please escort our guests to a dining room. I imagine that they did not have their supper. Itachi nodded to Naruto and led Narumi and Kurenai through the gardens, while Enko teleported back into the Twilight cells, with Naruto sitting back on the bench with his wife, shaking his head. You knew exactly what to say to me, just to make me think, didn't you? Naruto looked at his smiling wife, who merely shrugged at the suggestion, but did not lose her smile one bit. Well, it is my duty as your wife to sometimes rain wisdom and mercy upon you, my love, and with how stubborn you can be at times, it is no wonder that I require additional help with you. Semiramis joked a little, with Naruto chuckling a little at that one. Naruto, you know that it is only for the better to give Kushina a chance. Let her see that there is life without Minato and Menma, without desperation and half-insane denial. A life without a mask, the one that you had always wanted for yourself. I know, Semiramis. But sometimes the masks grow onto your skins and become inseparable from your real face. I remember how badly it was with me, when Uther just took me in Naruto's side as he remembered, before he turned to look in his wife's eyes. Tell me, why did you side with Narumi this time? When I first told you of how she acted, you were almost furious enough to turn back in your dragon form and go to Konoha and have words with her. But now, let it be known that I do admit that I am prone of letting lose my temper, at times. Semiramis admitted, though with the smallest of blushes. But with what Narumi had told me and everything that had happened with us, I couldn't stop thinking about Kushina's situation and comparing it with what had happened with my mother. Semiramis grew a little sad, before Naruto had hugged his wife caringly, remembering how bad it was for his wife to face against her. I remember how kind and caring she was, but also how very devoted to my father she was as well. So devoted and loyal, that his way was the only one for her, a blinding loyalty with desperation, the same one as with Kushina. And whenever I think about it, I can't stop thinking that if I had been more proactive, if I had showed her the wrong Neltharion had committed, and then perhaps she wouldn't have gone mad and done so much wrong. Perhaps, I could have avoided it altogether, instead of dealing with it just a few years ago. I see where you are coming from, Semiramis. Naruto sighed, holding his wife close to him. I'll give Narumi a chance, and if Kushina agrees then maybe I'll change my opinion of her, but do not bet on it so easily. Semiramis simply chuckled at this one, while Naruto softly put a hand upon her belly. And how does our little baby girl doing? Is she already making her presence known? You know as well as I do that she is still too early for that. Semiramis simply shook her head at this. You remember when I was having our first child, Naruto? I maybe shortened the process of pregnancy with my physiology, but it still took 6 months for him to come to life, and now I am barely through the first one. I know, but you know how I get with our children, do you not? Naruto smiled to Semiramis, with merely laughed, recalling just what a soft and doting father to his children Naruto was. And I still have not forgiven you, milady, for Demon's accelerated growth, Naruto half-jokingly stated to her, with Semiramis pouting a little and puffing up her cheeks as she answered to him. It is not my fault that children of dragons and humans grow up so fast, and had I wanted to staunch his growth, I could only do so through magic, and we both would never do something like that. Semiramis was serious on this one, before spoke more softly to her husband. Naruto, we have consulted Alexstrasza and she confirmed that Demon's growth is natural for one of his origin, especially for a child of an aspect. His mind and body both grew without any trouble. For Dragon, Demon is still a hatchling, with the body of a grown human and a formed mind. And let us be honest, when compared to how Targaryens have called their children dragons, our little dragon turned out to be just a marvelous child, and do not even dare to deny it. I would never. Whom do you take me for? Naruto chuckled at this one with his wife. I think I'm just sad that I saw our son grow up so fast. Just some 8 years ago I held in my arms, and now he is of my height, and I can't help but see in him not a small boy, but a grown man. One that already makes me proud. Is this even normal, for a father not being able to see his son as a small boy like he once was? For all parents it is sad, not just for you, but to me as well. Semiramis admitted. He has everything to be a great emperor after you, but I sometimes can't help but remember how he was just learning to make his first steps, or how he first talked to us, and now he is already out there, traveling the Westerosi kingdoms, learning of the empire and its subjects, as well as doing his duty to the empire. I sincerely hope that he did not learn any bad habits from their king. Light knows that Boar has more of those than my father has prayers for each of the sins. Naruto shook his head at this one. Good thing that Alexstrasza's granddaughter is accompanying him. Those two will be alright together, 2 children of human and a dragon. Yes, Urza was very persistent to accompany Demon, almost as much as Irene with me to share you. Semiramis brought it up to her husband with a small wicked smile of her own. Young dear was always very much fond of our boy, and now, both are physically grown and beautiful, strongly connected since their childhoods. Perhaps we should prepare the court for the news of heir to the throne soon marrying the legendary Titania of Red Flight. We first need to prepare them for the news of you being with a child, my beloved empress. Naruto reminded her, with Semiramis chuckling to it. I wouldn't be surprised if the suitors for her were to show up the moment it was announced of a new princess soon being born. Remember how it was with Demon? Better not remind me of that, though now he has Urza to scare all those harlots away. Semiramis and Naruto laughed at this one. I still can't believe the gall of that Tully woman from a year ago, to push for a match between our boy and her daughter, speaking to me as if she were my own mother. Those Tullys seem to have the mind of their sigil, the trout. But, at least she was being modest, unlike that Lannister woman. Semiramis remembered with disgust Cersei and her husband, as well as the rest of Lannister family. That you are right, my beloved empress. Naruto kissed her on the cheek. Now, milady, I believe that it is time for our supper. I hear that the cook is serving your favorite for the supper. Semiramis looked at her husband with a smile and rose up with him, going with him towards the dining room and leaving any and all bad thoughts behind. Meanwhile, Westerosi Kingdoms. King's Landing. Red Keep. King's Landing, a proud capital of the former 7 kingdoms, of which Reach and Dorne had been subjugated and integrated into a second Numenor empire to the south, leaving only 5 kingdoms in the hold, without a real, complete independence. When Emperor Naruto had proclaimed the official formation of the second Numenor empire 5 years ago, an enemy to the north had risen up, to the north of Angmar, Gilneas and Lordaeron, intent to claim more lands into his own domain. That enemy was Robert Baratheon, the king of the Undels, first men, ruiner and protector of the realm of 7 kingdoms, who had crushed the previously ruling House Targaryen, and now was eager for more conquest, past Dorne and those 3 kingdoms that lay to the south of it, namely Angmar and Lordaeron. Robert had amassed a host of nearly 80,000 men, believing that he would be easily victorious against, whom he called, an upstart blonde prick so green, he pissed grass. However, what he did not count for was the fact that the same boy whom he underestimated wasn't as gullible, or easily scared, nor was he stupid. Second Numenor Empire, unlike all other countries, relied on a regular army, professionally trained and equipped, stationed in parts throughout its regions and on the borders, with 5 legions, a main unit of the empire, numbering 10,000 men and women of infantry, 3,500 cavalry and 50 mages of various spheres in each legion, being stationed at the border with Dorne and Reach. Westerosi kingdoms did not hold any magical users in their ranks, being of more superstitious beliefs and conservative towards it and other races, while Numenor and Eriador had an abundance in magical users of all calibers, with Empire bringing their full might into the defense of its borders, along with other races contributing their own forces to the cause. Robert had started a war when he invaded Angmar to his direct south of Dorne, hoping to easily break through the Garden Keeps and move towards Lordaeron to the west and south towards the center of the empire. However, he underestimated the strength of the legions and their commanders, all of whom were just recently blooded and tested during the Great War, along with Magi proving invaluable in supporting armies through portals or with healing. Along with that, the strongholds and keeps that were on Robert's path were not very easily taken, with garrisons holding to the last man and not surrendering, and even breaking through the walls took considerable effort on Westerosi's part. By the time second month of the campaign rolled in, Robert was only done with 2 forts and had laid the siege to another 3, with his army already thinning out to 70,000 strong. As Marshal of North, Tyrion Fordring wisely used his legions and struck at Robert's weaker parts of his great army. He also made use his elite corps of High Elf Rangers, raiding Robert's supply lines and even venturing into Westerosi kingdoms to divert the attention of Robert's forces. This had stalled Westerosi king long enough in his place for 2 more months, for the real imperial army, numbering 90,000 strong, with Emperor leading them, to strike back at Robert Baratheon with his overwhelming numbers of 140,000 men. The Battle of Ironfield was the second major defeat that Robert Baratheon had suffered, but it would prove to be a decisive one for him, as his army had been broken apart and destroying by superior forces. Naruto himself had faced off against King Robert, who by then was already a near obese man, and defeated him in single combat, but did not kill. Casualties for Naruto's forces were around 6,000 dead and 9,000 wounded, while Robert Baratheon had lost 57,000 men dead and another 10 as captives. After that crushing defeat, Reach and Dorne both rebelled against King Robert Baratheon, the former because House Tyrell saw the power of the Empire and wished to be spared from the wrath of Emperor, while the latter with House Martell was eager to avenge the deaths of Elia Martell and her children. Naruto accepted both of the kingdoms into the fold of his empire, but on his own terms, which were actually well received by Tyrells and Martells. In the following 7 months, Naruto had systematically eliminated Robert's ability to raise another powerful army against him, having taken Stormlands and Westerlands, before he laid siege and took King's Landing. The city was considered to be strong enough to withstand an army the size of 100,000 at full garrison and additional forces in it, and Robert had amassed 30,000 strong in there, while Naruto only brought 55, seemingly not enough to take the city, while the rest of his forces already were taking Riverrun and moving to Vale of the Arons. However, with him were 600 magi and 500 cannons, dwarven marvels of siege warfare, freshly transported with a full division of dwarf specialists knowing how to use them. For 5 hours those cannons and magi pummeled the landing's walls and its defenders, until King Robert hadn't decided to bring the fight to Naruto and rode out with 2/3 of his forces towards him, hoping to crush them while they were few in numbers. But instead of doing that, they were absolutely obliterated by the might of magi and artillery, before being finished off by Naruto's army. After that, and having been convinced by his retainers, wife and his hand, Robert sought the peace and capitulated. Naruto was considerably merciful to the invader. Reach and Dorne were integrated into the Second Numenor Empire. Westerosi kingdoms were to pay 20 million golden dragons, their main currency, and to become client states of Second Numenor Empire, with Naruto now being the Lord Protector of 5 kingdoms. A merciful outcome, which nonetheless had plunged now 5 kingdoms into an absolute hellhole of an economic crisis, making them completely dependent on the trade and relations with Empire itself, while Reach and Dorne saw a great rise in prosperity, wealth and influence as subjects to Emperor. This had caused tensions between the Westerosi kingdom's ruling dynasty and Second Numenor Empire, but the lesson was well learned and remembered, and the fact that if another war were to happen with them, they would be crushed, was not ignored. So, biting their tongues, Robert Baratheon and his wife had to now contend with the presence of Demon Pendragon, prince of the Second Numenor Empire and heir to the throne, now being here on behalf of his father, and discussing the terms of the contributions being paid to his empire, along with some other matters of significant importance. Demon, though just 8 years of olden time, was in physical sense, fully grown and having reached his physical adulthood at age of 5. He stood at the same as his father's height, possessing messy and spiky black hair and golden eyes, a face of his father, strong build and dressed in black with gold. He wore a black and gold coat over a white shirt, with pants and boots being made in similar fashion, with a sword with black handle being attached to his left side. Though he was young, as a demi-dragon, he was educated, smart, and not so easily swayed to any side, possessing the will and clarity of mind, both of which were gifts of his mother and father. Trusted and loved by his subjects and his family, Demon took up the responsibilities of a prince and carried himself with dignity, with which he was now standing before the empty iron throne, made of 1,000 swords forged together in the flames of Aegon Targaryen's dragon. At his side stood a beautiful young woman of his own age, with long red hair, black eyes and dressed in plate armor with a blue skirt. She was Demon's closest friend, companion and if his parents were to allow, his wife to be, Urza Belsirion, stepdaughter to the Emperor through his third consort, Irene Belsirion, a red dragon and a daughter of Alexstrasza. Demon and Urza heard the steps behind them and turned, seeing Cersei Lannister and her eldest son, Joffrey Baratheon, approaching them. Even though it was not the first time they saw each other, it still surprised Demon how smug and arrogant the Lannisters carried themselves, along with how incredibly alike Joffrey looked with his uncle. Almost as if Joffrey was his son instead of Robert's. Your Imperial Highness, Lady Urza, you weren't expected to arrive. Cersei spoke to them, with a bow from her and her companions, with Demon and Urza nodding to them. What brings a young man like you in King's Landing, especially not informing with a prior notice? Certain things that need clarification, Your Grace. Demon spoke with strength and resolve, not being the least intimidated by her. As you are well aware, since Westerosi kingdoms are the official client state of Second Numenor Empire, your realm is charged with paying war reparations, payment of which has come to a halt. Considering the fact that I was in Dorne, visiting Prince Doran, I have decided to personally investigate this sudden occurrence. Perhaps you could clarify as to why this has happened, along with other things, before I meet with your husband and small council. My husband is away on the hunt, so I doubt you will be meeting him any time soon. And as for the dead, I am afraid I do not know why this has suddenly happened, but I do believe that it is only a temporary halt. Cersei stayed to Demon, who simply nodded at this one. Are you for long to King's Landing? Perhaps I could invite you to a dinner with my children and me? I am sure a man of your standing would love to dine in company such as ours. A tempting offer, but one that I must refuse. Demon replied to Cersei, surprising her. I am here on official business, and I do plan on leaving as soon as the matter has been successfully resolved, though it would appear that I will not find much solution here. Demon said to Cersei, confusing her. Whilst I was in Dorne, certain rumors have reached me. Rumors of a civil war already being waged between your House Lannister and House Tully of Riverrun, and that king and his hand do nothing to prevent it. I believe you can understand that if such thing is happening out here, the Emperor will have to take action to stabilize this region. If King Robert Baratheon is incapable of as much, Your Imperial Highness, I can assure you that this conflict was started with Lady Catelyn Stark imprisoning my brother, Tyrion, for no good reason, and my father is trying to rescue him. I am sure that if you inform your father of this detail, Cersei, seeing a chance of swaying a young prince and his empire to the side of the Lannister, wished to use it, but was interrupted by Urza. And what about Hand of the King being attacked by your twin brother in broad daylight? I understand that your younger brother has been abducted by his wife, but still, to commit such a capital crime and get away with it, had it been Hand of the Emperor attacked in such a manner, the attacker would lose his head within an hour, regardless of his status. Urza noted out, with Joffrey taking turn to speak. Who gave you, a peasant girl, the right to speak here? Joffrey arrogantly asked of her, with Urza not being the least intimidated. Do you even know who we are, girl? And as for that fool Stark being attacked, he brought it upon himself, by covering up for his bitch wife and denying my uncle to comply with the wishes of his superior. Your companion seems to be in need of learning some lessons of courtesy, Your Imperial Highness. To address us in such a manner is quite normal, considering that in status she is equal to me, being a recognized member of Imperial family and de facto, higher than you in status, Demon reminded, as he turned to face Joffrey. And you should properly educate your own son in matters of courtesy. With such a mouth and manner of speaking, he would not make a popular king. Ignoring the pitiful glare that Joffrey had sent him, Demon turned back towards Cersei. Now, if nothing else, actually, Prince Demon, there is actually something that I would like to talk to you. If you have a moment. Demon decided to listen to what Cersei had to say. I believe you have already heard rumors that my eldest son is already betrothed to Sansa Stark of Winterfell, daughter of Ned Stark. Yes, I have heard about it. If you recall, 2 years ago, during the Tournament of Unification, there were talks about uniting the houses of Pendragon and Baratheon through a marriage, between your parents and my husband with my father. Cersei reminded him. While your parents and public had dismissed our proposal, it is still achievable. I can assure that if you convince your father to a match between your sister, Lady Rhys Belsirion, and my son, Prince Joffrey, the Crown and Lannisters will not forget your kindness, and as you know, Lannisters always pay their debts, and such a debt will be in no need of payment, because there will be a freezing cold day in Dorne before I bring this proposal before my father, Demon stated, with strength and resolve, surprising Cersei and Joffrey. Your Grace, if you think that I do not know what Game of Thrones is, you are sadly mistaken, and I am also very well aware that your house and father have nothing that could sway me, and I have no desire to be a part of your court games. My business here is clear and straight, and I intend to carry it through and be on my way out of here. Your Imperial Highness, the small council has assembled and is waiting for you. A servant has informed Demon and Urza, as he came in. Good, time to settle this matter as well as some others. Your Grace, Prince. Demon simply nodded to them as he and Urza were on their way to the chambers of the small council. What an arrogant inhuman bastard, how dares he to talk to us like he is the king here? Joffrey nearly shouted. He and his bitch sister should be happy that I would even consider her as a match instead of that foolish Stark girl. Don't worry, my lion. Soon enough, he will come to see our way. Cersei assured him. His father may call himself a Lion of the West and his mother is a Queen of the Black Dragons, but he is not a full dragon, and he is a very long way from home. A lone prince, with just that little red whore to protect him, with hundreds of our swords, and 1,000 miles away from any loyal to him servants and his father. Soon enough, he'll have to reconsider his decisions. The Imperial Square, near the palace. The enormous crowd of people has amassed at one of the main central places of Numenor City. Citizens, travelers, soldiers, merchants, priests, and more. All of them had come in here to witness the justice being done and to bear witness to a foul schemer that had tried to manipulate their beloved emperor, and now was to face the executioner's blade. Rumors of what had happened in the Imperial Palace had spread like dragon fire in a stormy wind, and in a matter of a day, half the empire knew what had happened, along with greatly exaggerated versions. Some of the subjects of the Emperor and Empress even sent their official representatives to see what had happened, like Gilneas with their renowned hero, Darius Crowley, and Dalaran with their Archmage Medina, along with already present representatives from all over the empire. All of them were situated at the special gallery, shared by some of the members of Imperial family, Emperor Naruto himself, Emperor's Hand Gabriel and his wife Varisa, Hanabi Pendragon with her father Hishi Hyuga, and a good portion of the Imperial court. Near Naruto personally stood Niji, as always at his side, Narumi, Kurenai, with her daughter enjoying the company of the Empress, Keiru Uzumaki, and finally, his own mother, Kushina Uzumaki, joined to her son and daughter and standing firmly by their side, with her mind fully set and decision made, for the first time fully in 15 long years. Her talk with Narumi and Keiru had not been a pleasant one, but it did reveal to them all many things, and let Kushina be herself once again. Flashback. Yesterday. Restricted interrogation room of Twilight section of prison. Narumi was sitting in the chair at the table, with her aunt and head of clan Uzumaki, Keiru Uzumaki, right at her left side. The two women of Uzumaki origin knew of each other well, thanks to Naruto and his help to reconnect Narumi with the real Uzumaki clan and its true traditions and ways. Though it had taken some time and persuasion, Kaoru herself has come to see in Narumi not just Kushina's child, a child of a traitor, but a true Uzumaki and a member of her own family, even a daughter of her own at times. Kaoru had always wanted Narumi to completely let go of the elemental nations, to come fully into the West and live there, offering her a place at her side and within her family. But until yesterday, Narumi had refused, doing her duty for Naruto. Fortunately enough, Narumi was now fully ready to be a part of the real Uzumaki clan, which had brought great joy to her aunt. But when she asked her for help and explained the nature of that help, Kaoru immediately grew skeptical and doubtful. When Clan Uzumaki had migrated to the west, they were greeted by someone they least expected, Clan Uchiha of the West, who had offered them part of their own lands, help and resources to start all over, anew. Before long, Clan Uzumaki, though just half of its original numbers, has settled in and thrived in relative safety and with the alliance with Clan Uchiha of the West, and Kaoru's father had managed to solidify that alliance by marrying Kaoru to Mikoto Uchiha, a match that had proven to be a happy one for both them and the clans. For decades clans had thrived together, fending off against the aggressors from the east and against the iron-born raiders from the north, until Naruto came for Kaoru, to see her own sister's son, to hear his tale, and what had happened to him, was a great shock. Her own older sister had sacrificed her own son for the other two, and Kyuubi's power made him a pawn. Despite what many of the Easterners may think, Clan Uzumaki wasn't such a loyal friend to Konoha, especially after learning of the fate of Mito Uzumaki, and how she was used as a living prison for Kyuubi. They had helped with founding of Konoha, were among its founding clans, but instead of respect and honor, they received only horse shit, and their members only were later used as the tools for Konoha and its ambitions. Gradually, as Konoha fought and dragged Uzumaki through one war after another, the trust and friendship had soured to the point that Uzumaki were ready to break away from Konoha completely, and would have done so had Kiri, Iwa, and Kumo not attacked them in force, right after Konoha had received the next host for Kyuubi in form of Kushina. Shinjin Uzumaki, father of Kaoru and Kushina and a head of Uzumaki clan, figured that Konoha was already done with them and decided to wipe them out through the hands of their enemies. Needless to say, they failed and Uzumaki had been able to get away, but at a great cost. Kaoru, as well as all of Uzumaki and Uchiha, hated Konoha with passion, but it was nor hatred that brought them to Naruto as his allies and later most loyal subjects. It was his will, inner strength and resolve to unite this land into one, a passion that burned hotter than flames of dragons. Kaoru and Mikoto had pledged their clans and forces to Naruto and his cause, and when he did, uniting this land under one banner and one rule, and Uzumaki with Uchiha continued their loyal service to him. And while Kaoru had seen Naruto as nothing short of her own son, Kushina was an entirely different matter to her, as she despised and even hated her own older sister. And after Kaoru had heard of what had happened to Narumi, head of the Uzumaki, really wished that Sasuke Uchiha was killed off, preferably by her. But still, despite everything that had happened, Narumi wanted to have her mother here with her, and she managed to enlist Kaoru to convince her. Kaoru did not want any part in this, but after some talk with Narumi and later on Naruto, she agreed. She wasn't a fan of her sister, that is for sure, but she agreed with Naruto's conditions for Kushina's stay in here. Door inside opened up and Anko walked through with two watchers, who led Kushina, chained up and looking ragged up, but generally okay. It was a secured mystery, what watchers used in their interrogations and how they could break people, and their victims could never tell what was done to them. Kushina had already been interrogated, with healers working their magic on her to heal it, though the memories of the interrogation did remain within her. As Anko and watchers left the room, but not before putting a key on the table, near Kaoru. After that, Kushina looked at her daughter, well and dressed nicely, as well as her sister, before she spoke up. And Narumi, are you alright? Your father and we haven't heard a thing about you since they took you away. We were worried and had thought. Kushina looked at the both for a moment, before Narumi spoke up. I am alright, mother. Better than I had been for the past 8 years. Narumi offered her mother a seat, which Kushina accepted, though confused at her words. You should know that yesterday I and Kurenai were taken to see Naruto. He has spoken to you. Have you told him that we had nothing to do with it? That Minato. Kushina was already going into a ramble, before Kaoru shut her. Be quiet, sister, because what we have to say to you is more important to you than you can even think. Kaoru stated to her with coldness. You and your husband may not know it, but His Imperial Majesty has been keeping a very close eye on what has been going on in the East, especially in Konoha. And yes, it was he who had granted home and bright future to those that your husband saw as enemies within his village's walls. And he has extended the same offer to Kurenai Yuhi with her child, and to my niece Narumi here. Kushina looked shocked when she heard this, and she looked at her daughter in shock. Narumi, please tell me that you didn't. I have accepted it, mother. Narumi confirmed Kushina's worst fear. Naruto, my real brother, he had offered me a place in here over 2 years ago, and at first me and Kurenai had not accepted it, but now, after years and years of torment and being a pawn in father's hands, I have had it. Mom, brutal beatings, endless missions, constant danger for life, loveless marriage, being a sacrifice to keep at bay the monster. I can't go on like that any longer. Narumi, What are you saying? I know that what Sasuke had done to you was horrible, and I understand you would want a divorce. But your father and I have calmed down and talked about it all, and we believe that you should first wait and consider it all with us. And not only that, you have sworn yourself to Konoha and no Uzumaki had forsaken Konoha, and you are its shinobi. Not to mention, what about Menma, father and me? Would you really abandon your real family? No, this isn't right, this isn't you. It must be Naruto, trying to separate us, and Kushina was already starting ramble at a half-crazed pace, before Narumi, having heard enough, rose up and slapped her mother, hard, grabbing her by shoulders and making her look her in the eye. Mother, do you even hear what you are saying? Just yesterday, you were ready to tear out my father's throat for what he had done with Naruto, and now what in bloody hell is wrong with you? Just 1 minute you are acting like a real Uzumaki should've, and now you are a damned father's fangirl, ready to stand up on your legs like a loyal dog. Narumi shouted at her in shock, with Kushina looking at her in similar shock. Hell, you act just like when you had heard me tell you what that bastard Uchiha had done to me. When back in the cell, what is wrong with you, mother? And nothing is wrong with me, Narumi. I am well, and Naruto is wrong, he is trying to divide us, when he should be helping our family and his father, and not do all this. And Kushina continued to ramble on like half crazy, with Narumi looking at her with fear and shock. Kaoru also listened to it all, and the more she heard Kushina speak, the more she began to suspect that something else was also in play here. Being an Uzumaki and having married to head of Uchiha, Kaoru had learned to easily suspect and discover the subterfuge, lies and manipulations. And now her inner sense was telling her that Kushina wasn't in the clearest state of mind. Or more appropriately, she is not using her own mind right now. Rising up from her seat, she instantly placed a paralyzing seal upon Kushina, stopping her in track, before walked behind her and lifted up her red hair, looking at her neck. What Kaoru saw there made her blood boil, as she spoke up with hatred. That fucking bastard Minato. Of course I should have known that something like that was in play here, Kaoru said with hatred, surprising Narumi. Narumi, come here, dear. There is the answer to the madness that befell my sister. Narumi came in and looked at what Kaoru saw there. Is that a memory alteration seal? Narumi looked at the small seal, which Narumi was able to identify as one, having studied those with Kushina and her father. But it looked strangely altered and different, like it was made for a different purpose, and it seems to have been made rashly. Correct, my dear? This isn't a memory alteration seal, but rather an enslavement seal, a modified and more advanced version of the former seal, developed by one of Uzumaki clan. The seal itself was deemed to be too dangerous and forsaken from usage, but some among us know of it, and I suspect that Kushina knew of it as well and told Minato of it. Kaoru told Narumi. This seal acts directly upon the person's mind, completely nullifying its will and carefully implanting into them a mindset of a completely submissive and controlled person. With this thing on, you can make a person think and believe everything you want, but there is a downside to it. The seal is not permanent, and the will of the user will eventually overcome the seal's programming, releasing a person from the control. And if Kushina was anything like she used to be in the past, then it doesn't surprise me that this seal is looking like it is. It wasn't rushed, Narumi, but remade, at least 10 times, and the last time it was remade was just yesterday. Minato, you fucking bastard. Narumi looked in shock at her mother, and now she had realized that all this inaptitude, loss of will and power, as well as obedience to father, all of it was made by her father, who probably could not stand the idea of Kushina straying away from him and had decided to do everything in his power to keep her in check. It also provided Narumi with some answers, most prominent being why mother never left father after learning of what he had done all those years ago with Naruto, as well as many more arguments on this subject that they had, plus why she acted so duly with her situation with Sasuke. To think that her own father had done such a thing, and not just once, but many times on her. Narumi shook her head in shame, as the tears were starting to come out of her eyes, as she turned to her aunt. Aunt Kaoru, please free her. After all that he has done, what Konoha had done, I can't just. I know, Narumi. And I will. Kaoru's voice wasn't a steel cold or laced with anger, but with sadness and regret, as she easily dispelled and destroyed the seal, with Kushina falling in her sister's arms. Easy, Kushina. The seal has been upon your mind for over 14 years now, just take your time, sister. Kushina's frame stopped shaking, as like a fog had lifted off of her mind, clearing up everything and showing the poor woman all that has happened to her and her family, and the realization of all the sins that she had committed, the betrayals, treachery and more. It had nearly broke Kushina Uzumaki, as tears began to pour out of her eyes, as she remembered everything, loss of Naruto, revelation of him living and how Minato stopped her from going to him, her compliance, and how she simply followed him, how she refused to believe her daughter, when every fiber of her being screamed at her to help her. Her entire life, her whole adulthood, Kushina had been nothing more but a pawn in someone's game and others' hands, either because of her status or because of Kyuubi. And Minato destroyed her will, made her his own doll to use, all because he did not wish to see their family fall apart. Kushina had risen up on her own feet, still supported by her sister a little bit, but as the strength returned to her and tears began to fall down, her inner spirit, her will and determination, all of it had finally began to return to her. And with it all, Her former haze of love for Minato and Menma had washed away, with anger and fury coming down upon it all, as her heart turned away from them and towards whom she had betrayed for so long, Naruto and Narumi. Minato had used her, made her his slave and used her as a symbol for his own cause. And Menma, he was far too much like his father now, only even more arrogant and pompous. She failed him like a mother, there was no denying it, and she failed all of her children, especially Naruto and Narumi. Her only hopes now were that they would be able to even forgive her for all she had done to them. Kushina looked at her daughter's crying form, with Kaoru unshackling her sister, which pushed Kushina to immediately go to her daughter and embrace her tightly and warmly, like a mother should, crying to her, "Narumi, my sweet little daughter, I am sorry. I am so sorry. What have I done to you and Naruto? How weak I was, my sweet little girl. If only I was smarter and stronger." Kushina cried on her daughter's shoulder, before she separated from her and looked at a softer-looking Kaoru. "Sister, I..." "Say nothing more, Kushina." Kaoru stopped her. With all that had happened between Uzumaki and Konoha, with how they had abused us, and what Minato did, and how you were on their side at the start, it will take time for me to accept you back, Kushina. "Why, yes, I understand it," Kushina said to her, wiping away her tears. "My whole clan, I had betrayed them, and for what? Years and years of abuse and suffering, and then later on I should have listened to father from the start, not been so trusting to that monkey bastard Naruto, my son. Oh, what have I done to him?" "Mom, not all is lost," Narumi said to Kushina, drawing her attention. "Naruto offered me and Kurinai a place here, a chance to start anew, and I have asked him to extend this proposal to you as well." Kushina looked in shock at her daughter and sister, who continued, "Don't get your hopes up, Kushina. Naruto still holds the grudge for all that had happened with him, and he blames you for it. But seeing what we had discovered here, we'll make sure to tell him everything. It will ease the tensions between you two, but you will still need to find a way to your son's heart." Kaoru told her sister, "He is willing to let you stay in the Empire, and when he hears of what Minato did to you, he is sure to soften up to you, but should you betray his trust and remain loyal to Konoha, he will not be merciful. He has lost his wife to traitors, and treason is one thing he would never forgive." "No, I understand." Kushina understood them, looking at Narumi. "My poor little girl Minato and others, they've abused our clan for far too long. I'll be fucking damned if I ever let Konoha dictate me how to live. I've betrayed my family and my children for far too long, and I won't do it ever again. Tell Naruto that I will do anything and everything to win his trust to me, and that I want someone examine me and my body." Narumi and Kaoru looked at her confused. "After all that had happened, I want to be bloody sure that there is nothing on me that Minato or his frog pervert master had placed on me or my mind. I will not betray my children, willingly or not, never." Kaoru nodded to her, with Narumi smiling to her. "Now this sounds like Kushina Uzumaki I knew once. Don't worry, we'll take of it all, and afterwards, all you'll need to worry about is making up to your son, Kushina," Kaoru assured her. "And make up to him I will, Kaoru. You can count on it." Kushina had thought to herself with the determination of a true Uzumaki. End of flashback.